Hi, everybody. It's me, the Fetch, host of Inside the Eye Live. Before the Sunday mainstream media political pundit talk shows, there is Inside the Eye Live, where we break down some of the weekly mainstream media talking points before the talking points even get aired. Add in some entertaining stories, weather, cats, intriguing and informative guests, and you get one of the most listened to Saturday morning streaming media political talk shows going today. And it's all right here on our flagship station, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So join me, the Fetch, for Inside the Eye Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Many years from now, will you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
The future is uncertain. I know this. Death is inevitable. I know this. But one thing is certain, as free men, it is our right to live unencumbered and in peace. And those times are quickly drawing to an end. And in these times, peace is certainly an illusion, and as the chains grow tighter, our ability to slip those chains increase incrementally with every passing moment. Inaction is no longer an option. It's time to raise our voices like a cacophony of thunder and lightning and tell the masters no more. And this is Nighthawk, and I say, for myself, no more. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, because the freedom is slipping away. All right, thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
Your host, Robbie Davidson, and this is episode 112. It's July 3rd, 2021. It is Independence Day coming right up. Fireworks going off. We're going to be talking about that and so much more. This episode is called Calm Before the Storm. And actually, I was going to title it Calm Before the Next Big Storm because we've been going through quite a few different storms. And it just seems like right now there's this calming period. It's almost like where I'm from, everything's opening up, no more masks. Everyone's free. And I joked about it on Facebook at one point and said, oh, isn't it so nice? The government gives us one season a year where we get freedom. It's come to that. Yes, 2021, it's come to that where we're actually thankful. Sarcastically, of course. But it was kind of nice going to the beach and hanging out with the family. And it just seems so sad that we might not ever be able to do certain things that we were able to do before. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be getting into, obviously, Independence Day, what that means and how it's different this year. We'll talk about stuff happening here in Canada, also the United States. As my special guest, no stranger to Celebrate Truth Radio, I do a podcast and a weekly show called Axion Today with her and Paul Lindbergh. And we've done so much stuff, and we've stayed so close throughout the years, starting in 2015, where she was the very first interview I did when it came to Flat Earth. If people have been following me on my journey, you'll know that I did a lot of stuff, documentaries, created the Flat Earth International Conference, and this guest, she was the very first one where I went public and gave my first interview. That's right, the beautiful Mrs. Steere. How you doing,
Hello.
Patricia?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on your show. And, I'm in the U.S. and you're in Canada, and we're facing different aspects of the same thing, as is everyone across the world or across the plane, depending upon how you want to look at it. We're all facing this stuff. And, in the U.S., we've got tomorrow, which will be the 4th of July, Sunday. It's Independence Day. And, of course, it's the celebration with fireworks and barbecues, and you get together with the family. It's a celebration of freedom. And it's been a federal holiday in the U.S. since 1941, but it actually goes back to the 18th century and the American Revolution. However, there is no more freedom. So I say that we probably should abolish this entire holiday. I mean, we can have barbecues, picnics, and fireworks, but we should not be celebrating freedom. In fact, right before the show opened, there was a commercial played with Mel Gibson as the character, in the movie Braveheart, saying, they can't take our freedom. Well, guess what? They
did.
And no one really stood up, especially we've got guns galore in the U.S. I mean, not everyone's got a gun. That's a fallacy. I know that's not true, but we're seen as being the ones with all the guns. Yeah. And no one lifted a finger. No. We had, grown men who might have guns, but they were locked in their gun safe at home as they donned their double masks and rubber gloves and sanitized, their every surface that they touched. And just followed every single order, believed every single newscast, and lived in a state of fear for over a year plus. And that's why we are where we are today. And it's why we are going where we're going to be going tomorrow. Robbie and I have some agreement on what's going to happen in the future. Some things we don't agree upon. But in the end, between this conversation, it'll be cool to think about what we think might happen, and also what's being told to us through other sources that might be possibilities.
Yeah, we'd love to hear if you're in the chat and you want to chime in as far as anything you think that might be coming down, because there's just so many different theories out there on how it could go down. We all do agree on one thing, that there really is no normal. I mean, what we knew is gone, and as much as I hate the term, the whole new normal. I think that's pretty much established that, it was kind of like 9/11 when all this stuff took place. Nothing ever went away, right? After the fact, it was all like instituted, put together, and those freedoms and liberties never came back in the same regard. I think, the plexiglass that's up, I'm not sure if it's ever going down. So just things like this, I think, we see a progression, and, you were talking about Independence Day, and I don't know, I'm kind of torn, because, it's the same thing with like Canada Day, which was July 1st. You've got big pushes now where people want to get this canceled. Now, not because of the freedom aspect, because America and Canada are now evil, right? The whole white man are evil.
Canada Day and 4th of July racist, perhaps? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, they're basically saying there's no cause to celebrate because, we now know that these are inherently evil, white men are awful. And, this whole push now for just no patriotism, no being proud of your country. Now, I know that there's always problems, but at the end of the day, there's certain freedoms. There are certain things in these countries that are a lot better than, say, other countries. Why do you think that everyone around the world are trying to get into these countries, right? They can't be that racist. They can't be that evil, when everyone wants to get in them, right?
Right, and the people who are coming here and starting new lives and new careers often are quote-unquote people of color.
Correct.
That are coming here and getting that new lease on life because it's not so great in their country.
It's not so great in their country, right? So, I mean, I do agree with you, however, but I just think that, this whole idea, and I've said this on many shows, is the whole Marxist communist takeover that's already taken place. One of the big things they do is they divide and conquer, right? They use class or race. They're using race this time. But the big thing is they want to basically take out all identity, any type of identity to a country, to patriotism, to, and they really want this whole kind of just, I don't know, it's kind of like that herd, they're talking about herd immunity. They want herd mentality.
Yes.
That's the way I see it right now.
Isn't it weird? All the phrases that they've got that they use are sort of true, like it's a new normal. Well, they say that for one reason, but we know that this is a new normal in a different way than they say it. And same thing as herd immunity and herd mentality.
Exactly.
So some of the things they say have some truth when you kind of look into it from our perspective. I mean, us as truth seekers in general.
But I think all the truth times, we've never seen anything this rapid, this quick of a transformation.
No,
I'm still floored at how fast this transformation is taking place.
And I saw like right now, okay, in fashion, I used to have a clothing store. They are getting ready to drop the lines for the holidays. So if you are a clothing store owner and you want to make a buy for what you want in your store right before the American Thanksgiving or Canadian Thanksgiving, you've got to make these orders now. And I was looking at even if I don't have a clothing store anymore, I still look and see what these people who used to be my suppliers have. Anyway, because some of the people are still kind of friends. And I saw a new line of sweaters that they're going to be introducing by this one line for women, Christmas sweaters. You know, the whole ugly Christmas sweater trend. This Christmas sweater had on it words, and it was, red and green with the little snowflakes on it. And it said, deck the halls with brave, strong women. Kama la 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 la.
Oh my goodness.
Kamala Harris. And I just put my head in my hands and said, make it stop.
Oh, well, it's just so awful, too, because you're dealing with like just incompetent, incoherent president. And everyone's just like, man, this guy's just got to give it up. I mean, he's getting dementia, and it's just sad watching this. But what's the alternative? Guess who replaces Biden?
Right. And you know what? Who knows what would have happened had Trump won? I don't have much faith in politicians in general. I think this whole agenda would have been rammed down our collective worldwide throats, regardless of who was in store. Perhaps it would have slightly been modified one way, not in store, in the office. It might have been modified one way or the other slightly, but still, I mean, the agenda has been in place for a long time. There was Event 201. There have been other things even in the distant past, in the early 2000s, that were, drills and tabletop plannings for such sort of events of a coronavirus and all of that. So, they had this in mind. But, we all know the story of how it all went down. We all experienced it.
And actually, speaking of which, we're actually allowed now on YouTube to actually say that we think we're highly suspicious. It probably came from the lab in Wuhan, which I think is funny because videos were getting taken down left, right, and center in 2020. If you dared, I mean, even Trump, we'll go back to Trump.
Channels were deleted. Gone
but even, I mean, and I'll bring it up, but Trump was one that first actually brought that out in attention, and everyone lost their mind. He's crazy. He's a xenophobe. And all the social media were like, they ban you instantly if you dared even question the original story of what they were trying to say, which, they were saying it came from bats and bat soup and all this kind of craziness. I just find it interesting how all of a sudden, you kind of see within a year's time, and already, there's a lot of people that are pushing that narrative. Now, I have no idea exactly, what the truth is, but I find it highly doubtful that it came from just some imaginary bat, especially when you start following it. It doesn't line up at all. I guess apparently they've actually tried stuff, and they say that this strand, they can't do anything animal to animal. It was 100% human. So they're definitely thinking that it was modified and different things like this. So it's just really intriguing now how. And again, they didn't say sorry or nothing. I mean, what about all the damage that was done with channels that were taken down, videos that were deleted? I know, people's reputations. And it was like, oh, yeah, no, I guess we were wrong. Oh, whoops. Like social media are so dangerous. They're so out of control powerfully. Oh, they're so powerful. So powerful.
I deleted my Facebook.
I know you did. I was sad. You should have told me beforehand.
My Instagram.
I know.
I did it because.
Oh, Patricia.
I downloaded all the photos, all the memories and things, but I did it because I just see how evil it is. I'd want to. I mean, here we are on YouTube and other. I mean, where you broadcast from, Freedom Slip Studio and all of that. They're the good guys, but we are also on some bad guys platforms. Hopefully, they're not listening and pulling the plug
Revolution Radio, and again, they are like number one listener supported radio network, and great stuff. Definitely try to support them.
No,
but if I disappear off everything. If I disappear off everything, you can still find me on Revolution Radio. I always say that because these guys are non-censorship free and stuff. But in the meantime, if you're going to use these platforms that have their rules, as crazy and as dumb as they are, they're still their rules. So if you can kind of try to get it in there as much as you can and utilize that and kind of be a good steward of what you have until you don't anymore, I think it's the way to go. Rather than saying, you know what, I'm going to say whatever I want today. Well, already, guys, you're never going to hear from me again.
Right. And if you go to BitChute or Brand New Tube, those are wonderful platforms. And there's many others. I go to those occasionally and watch content providers that I like that kind of got kicked off YouTube. But if you go there, there's more of an audience that is the preaching to the choir type audience. With YouTube, you have a bigger chance of just hitting on a quote unquote normie who might be passing by,
Correct.
who has no idea, and you might end up helping to open their eyes. But I do want to say this before we go further.
Sure.
That you and I have a little bit of a difference, and I'm going to phrase this in the way that YouTube will like. We have a difference in the way we view let's call it the bug. Okay. I believe the bug is repurposed numbers that are the flu, pneumonia, bronchitis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you might think it could be something that was lab or real or who knows. And I'm not saying you're wrong or dumb or anyone who thinks that's wrong or dumb. And I know I'm not wrong or dumb. These are different opinions and we'll never know the truth, probably. So it's good we have two different opinions on this show because there are people who are listening who also would share only one of our opinions, and we want to at least be able to, in a way, sort of do an audio reach out to everybody who's concerned with the situation, regardless of what you believe.
Yeah. No, that's true. And the main thing is that we all don't buy the mainstream narrative, right? And what they're pushing. And you can clearly see how they're coming against anyone that dare even question it. I mean, it's not even proposing a certain theory or belief system. It's like you can't even question the WHO. The World Health Organization. You can't even question the CDC. I mean, we're at a point in time now where if you even dare question them, you're getting canceled, right? And we see this, again, people are shocked. But again, if you look throughout history, you see that communist and Marxist regimes, this is what they do. They silence all opposition. And then at a certain point, they start going after kind of the bigger voices out there if they're continuing on. But really, we're at a point now where they really don't have to be violent. They just can be snap of a finger and you don't exist anymore. You really don't. I mean, if you don't have the public square, you don't really exist anymore. They can wipe you out in a matter of seconds without being violent, taking you to jail, putting you in a camp. They don't have to do anything of that. And when it comes to what we're going to discuss tonight, they can get to a point before having to try to forcefully or re-educate you. They can just make it so like you're stuck in your home forever. Because where are you going to be able to go? Are you going to be able to go into stores? Can you go on public transit? Can you go traveling? We're going to be talking about a lot of these things as questions. What are we going to be able to do in the future if we choose to be vaccine hesitant or something like this? This is what they're deeming it as. And I think
that I love that phrase.
Well, I think, but there's some truth to it. There's some truth to that though, Patricia, because not everyone that I talk to are truthers or even anti-vaxxers. They are hesitant because they're like, this is experiments. I want to see what happens. So I love the fact that so many people are waking up to the fact of going, wait a minute, just because they're, saying, hey, it's fine and dandy. I'm looking into it. And I'm like, wait a minute. I want to wait for a bit. This thing was rushed out. This thing is deemed experimental. It's not even approved, which I find mind blowing that they haven't even lied to the public and said, yes, it's FDA approved. They're actually getting away with this without even saying it's FDA approved.
Well, the thing about that is they are going to, in my opinion, here's my opinion coming, they are going to approve it. Not because it's actually, quote, safe and effective, but because that's just all part of the plan.
Sure.
And during our conversation, I want to use certain phrases that YouTube and other platforms are going to let us get by with.
Sure.
Anytime that we talk about the thing where you use a sharp object to pierce your shoulder, everyone know what I'm talking about? I'm going to call it the Pokemon. Pokemon.
I like it. Yeah.
Pokemon. And also remember, the Pokemon card game had trainers, human trainers that trained the animals like we're being entrained. And also the catchphrase for Pokemon was gotta catch them all. And what they're doing with us and the Pokemon situation, they want to catch us all and get us all Pokemoned. And another one is another key word on YouTube you can't say. I'm not going to say it. But everyone knows what RIP stands for, right? Rest in peace. I'm going to call anytime somebody RIPs a RIP. So you hear me say Pokemon, it's the sharp thing in the shoulder. And if I do say RIP, I'm meaning that somebody who's maybe no longer with us without using the D word, which is a keyword on YouTube that will get your video flagged.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm prepared for your show.
Nice. You got it all planned out, right?
I don't want you to lose your channel.
Pokemon. Wow. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's going to come regardless. But
I know.
until that day comes, it's just like, okay, well, and I know a lot of channels, they do the same thing where they're like, okay, well, fine, if it comes down to that, but the audience still knows what's going on, right? These are private businesses, and if they've got dumb rules, well, if you disobey the dumb rules, they boot you off their platform. So it's as simple as that, right? And people say, well, if you don't like it, go somewhere else. But unfortunately, there really isn't anywhere else. You mentioned BitChute, but I remember an event that took place in New Zealand. What was that, a couple of years ago, where even videos from BitChute were getting deleted because they went crazy. Do you remember that event that took place, the mass shooting, the mosque shooter that went into like a couple mosques? Well, I'll tell you one thing, even BitChute.
That video that they showed everyone of what occurred looked like a video game. I'll just say that right now.
But that video itself was just so to the point where it was like even BitChute was not even safe. BitChute videos were getting completely deleted, banned, censored. Yeah, it was. So when I want to go to BitChute. I'm like, guys, at the end of the day, if they want to move, they even have their tentacles into BitChute. So really, I think it's about equipping the audience while we have these times, because there might come a time when all of a sudden it's very, very tough for you to find any of this information. And, we see this in underground, the way even the church is operated in China, and there's always a will, there's a way. But, taking this information and spreading it and being, that voice, when all of a sudden, there's not many platforms left, because I don't see this letting up. And it doesn't matter what the topic is. If they don't want it talked about, well, they'll do their best to shut it down.
Well, Telegram has been compromised as well. There is a situation in which people who, I don't know, it's not happened to me, but people who are on Facebook who are also on Telegram, since those platforms are somehow connected in some high up way, are being informed that on Telegram you can get misinformation that could cause you to, endanger your life, which means, any sort of anti-Pokemon information. So, Telegram, I think, has been compromised. So many of these platforms have, but all you really can do in the end is at least try with the ones that you love and perhaps coworkers. And if they react negatively to your truth information or your opinions, you have tried, you have done the right thing. And in the end, you're in a great situation, Robbie, where your wife's on the same page as you, and you are the captain of your home, the steward of the family, and your children, and the whole way everything goes there is under your control, in a traditional male sort of values way.
I'm the boss. Yeah, you can say it. I'm the boss. It's fine. Yeah. She'd say it too if she came on the show. We're going to actually do a show on relationships and roles.
Oh, great.
And she'll probably shock a lot of people the way she talks about roles.
I think that's great. I mean, it depends on, people organize their relationships the way they want, but that's the traditional one that I really respect. Hey, I'm the boss of my 3 cats, so don't let them tell you different.
Well, see, the sad thing is, though, but I mean, that's all great, but the fact of not being able to see her family ever again in the future is still sad. I have to go on the record and say there's something saddening, and I'll stop sometimes and going, my goodness, like this is probably the last time. This is the last time I might ever see you in person. I might even say like David Weiss. He's in the actual chat on YouTube. Shout out to him. But like I stop and think about it. I'm like, wait a minute. Like I might not ever see anyone in person outside of my country ever again. To me, it's sad and it's shocking that it might be a reality. I'm not sure what you think.
In my country, at this moment, I live in Houston, Texas, and Texas is relatively free, although there's behind the scenes nasty stuff with our governor going on and the governor of quote unquote free Florida also going on. Not between the two governors, but there's little, it's not going to be as free as they say in the future. It's all going to be the same everywhere. That's
like you said, a governor leaves and a new one takes place, right?
A new one takes place. And that one's going to go more with the, with the current agenda. That's the way they'll be, that's the way it's going to go.
But doesn't it shock you that you might not ever even be able to travel to a country?
I might not ever go on a plane again. I was moving my suitcases out from a small closet to have some repair work done on a drywall in there that got accidentally broken by a person doing repairs in my house. I'm not going to say anymore. Very annoying. I had to move these suitcases out so the drywall repair could go on. And I saw my suitcases there, and I've used them to go see you and David Weiss and many others in the chat at these conferences and also personal trips. And I thought, you may never use those suitcases again.
Doesn't that freak you out? Doesn't that freak you out when you look at your luggage and you're kind of like, oh my goodness, I might not ever use this luggage ever again? It's just, it's so
I've got that little cute pillow you put behind your head. Even if you're in first class or even in, business, sometimes it's nice to have that pillow around your neck that holds your head up so you don't drool when you sleep on a long flight. Yeah, I'm like that pillow. I mean, I could just donate it right now.
You wouldn't drool anyways because you have to wear a mask, so the mask would catch it all now. So you don't have to worry about that in the future.
You know one thing that's good about masks? They've helped society in a great way, and here's how. If a person has really bad teeth or bad breath, or considers themselves ugly and is shy, masks, hey, the great equalizer.
Yeah, it's unbelievable too. Like the science. I mean, we'll talk a lot about this tonight. Obviously the difference between science and scientism. And I tell people all the time, and it is so important, guys. If you are not aware, I'm running that special. If people have not seen Scientism Exposed 1 and 2, this is a great resource to get into people's hands because a lot of people are waking up to, wait a minute, they're not so convinced anymore the science is settled. They're not so convinced anymore with the experts or the scientists. So I always tell people, get this into the hands of people because I don't think they understand how deep these lies go when it comes to Scientism Exposed, right? I've got my book, the DVDs, but right now I have that special where you get a free DVD with any order. You just go to celebratetruth.org and you can pick it up. It's such a great thing to get into people's hands because they need to understand. We've been talking about this for years, Patricia, but I don't think even in my, when I was doing these documentaries and talking about the evil of scientism and where it was leading and how tyrannical it was going to become, I don't think I understood the power and how quick it could actually come to be where they could shut down businesses, churches, keep you locked in your home, put something on your face and restrict you from going anywhere instantly within a very short period of time. Mm-hmm. I never saw that. I have to admit.
Potentially make you have to put a Pokemon into your arm in order for you to do anything at all, including feed your family.
I know. Or deny, your children of education unless you do, right? So like these things really are they're really bad if you actually think about the extent of what we're looking at. And, there are people that are waking up and I'm just so, I guess, encouraged because when you start looking around, there are a ton of people that are like, no, thanks. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait. I'm going to see how this all plays out. And as they're waiting to see how it plays out, they're starting to do research. They're starting to look into it. Now they're finding out all this data is coming out with children. They're starting to find out, I don't know if you knew this, but here's a shocking statistic. Someone maybe in the chat can, specify this, but I had heard this. I looked into it. I couldn't find the exact figure, but I knew, a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, it was at about 4,000. To put it in perspective, the amount of people that died, I think for the swine flu shot or whatever it was, I think about 25 or 26 in the States. It was about 4,000 right now currently. I heard right now it was like about 6,000, I think in the States. It is more than 9/11 and Pearl Harbor combined right now, how many people have. Now, their excuse is they're going to say, look, way more people would have died if they didn't take the vaccine. So it's kind of like, you got to kind of do these things sometimes. So I just find it always very interesting when it comes to the vaccine science or when it comes to the reasons. And I think this is fine to talk about because these are just questions and having these dialogue around it when it comes to just the, but I find scientism is nonstop where people have woke up to see, well, wait a minute, everything is changing. At one point we're told, no, the science is settled. Do not wear masks, And then it's all of a sudden wear masks. And now it's coming back. If you actually look at it and the science is starting to come out fully all over the place where they're saying masks are proven to be wrong. They did a study and they took new masks, a week used mask and a day old mask. And they compared them all. They found horrific, horrible stuff. They took them to a lab. They found all, I wouldn't even want to get into it on air. It was nasty.
It was a mask that children wore and they had all the most nasty, disgusting stuff in them, including like bad things, not just dirt, let's just say. Things that could really potentially, depending upon your belief in germ theory, make you sick. And I think it's really funny that originally you said a couple of moments ago that more people supposedly died than a combination of 9/11 and Pearl Harbor. Both of those things, by the way, are about as true when it comes to the original story or the official story as this thing we're going through right now.
Sure, but the numbers, regardless, if you want to take those numbers, they're still staggering numbers. And what's really interesting, they're printing these. These are on the government websites. This is on like the CDC website. This isn't just, we gather some figures on the internet. These are the official figures and they're broadcasting them, and yet so many people are like, yeah, okay, oh well, like it's just, we've come a long way, that's for sure, where people are not critically thinking. But going back to what I said before, there's a lot of people though that are staying back and saying, wait, I want to see what's going to go on. And unfortunately, I really, really hope I'm wrong, but I just think that we're going to see more and more complications. Unfortunately, the numbers are going to start stacking. I just have a feeling it's going to go that route. You're starting to see that in different articles that are surfacing in different countries. And I mean, when you rush something, men are fallible. Mm-hmm. And I don't care what you do, even if it's in good jest, you're going to make mistakes. And even like the guy that invented the mRNA, he's actually come on record and says, look, we make mistakes. And also, over time, that's why, some things have to go for years and years and years. Everyone has the acknowledgement that this thing's been rushed, and we don't know the long-term effects. Nobody can say it. Us on the show here, or even them over there. Right. Nobody has a clue. That alone should cause pause where you're like, wait a minute, I want to hold off. And I see a lot of people, including people around me that are very close. They're like, we're waiting. We're going to wait for a long time.
Those are non-conspiracy people.
No,
those
exactly.
Are like regular people.
Exactly.
That's a good sign.
A lot.
Yeah, that's a good sign. Hopefully there will be some change in this, some break in the clouds, maybe something that could even be biblical, that could change the way this is going. Or maybe we're supposed to suffer through this. Those of us who aren't going to take the Pokemon, those who have a belief in God, and those who, or you want to call it him the creator, depending upon where you're coming from. I know we're on the Celebrate Truth channel, so I'll say God, but you never know who's listening. And we want to be able to reach as many people as we can. You
know what? Too many people in this world are being offended, and that's the problem and the mess that we're getting into. Is now it's birthing people, and now it's like you said yesterday. We were chatting, and you said now it's chest feeding. Because
chest feeding instead
breastfeeding might be offensive.
Birthing people instead of mothers.
Fathers and mothers are offensive. It's parents, because we might offend someone if someone feels left out, or it's just unbelievable. This whole idea that like, oh, what you say might offend someone. When has that not applied?
People used to be offended by Elvis Presley back in the old days, dancing on stage and swiveling his hips. And now we've got a singer named Little Nas X who's miming having the devil do something to him from the back on stage. So
unbelievable, eh? Can you imagine if some people, they'd be rolling around their graves, if they could actually see the culture right now? And that's the thing, is we get desensitized.
There's no culture. It's just garbage.
It's gone. It's completely depraved. It is. I say to people all the time, I was talking to Jared Cressman the other day, and I said, isn't it interesting, though, that all throughout recorded history, there's wickedness, there's depravity, there's sexual immorality, all this stuff, right? All throughout civilizations. Usually that's how they implode, right? We see this time and time again. But there are certain things in our day and age. We were chosen to be born in a time where we would literally see things that have never been seen in the history of the world or the recorded history of man. It has never been seen, the lunacy and the absolute insanity of where it's going today. And one example I'm going to say is where people nowhere in recorded history have ever questioned male and female. Now, there's been people that wanted to dress up as a woman if they're a man, and vice versa, right? But there's never been a time where society as a whole has said, you know what, if you think that you're that, then yes, we're going to embrace you and say, yes, you're right. We could never say you're wrong.
And also help you financially to get an operation to change your anatomy, even if you're a child.
I know. Even if you're a child. And that's the big deal too now, is the push. And at the beginning, I said this before, everyone's like, just leave that whole thing alone. All they want is equality. All they want to do is marry. And I'm like, guys, that is not all they want. They're going to get that, and then they're going to push. Then you're going to give them what they want, and they're going to go more and more. The question is, when are they ever going to be satisfied? We're like, okay, we have it all. We're fine. We're at peace. Do you think, with what you've seen, they're ever going to be at peace until they basically, I mean, they're going into sports now.
How insane feminism, is it? That'll never stop either. That's going to go, that's already dragged the world into, the garbage pit. Abortion, I mean, everything that goes with all of these things are all
How is this going to play out? And that's the nature of the show. We're going to talk about how we're in a little bit of a pause here, a calm before the storm, and we're going to talk about how this is all going to play out. But how do you, just on that topic alone, how do you see it playing out, let's just say in women's sports, okay? One by one, if everyone embraces this idea that biological men that say they're women, right, are going to compete now with biological women. Do you see this as a good outcome, a good self-esteem booster, or even helping them, get scholarships and helping them in the world by giving them, really good opportunities by taking this away from them? Because I see this as anti-woman, and I wanted to ask you as a woman,
yes,
looking at this, does this seem like the cruelest thing to women that possibly could happen, and it's all disguised in woke?
Just imagine your daughter grows up and wants to be a gymnast, or wants to be, I don't know, a weightlifter or something. And she is competing against biological men who may or may not have had an operation, or may just identify as a man. She'll never be able to win. She will be a loser before she even begins. And so probably it'll make women not compete in sports. But to be fair, there won't be huge numbers of men who have transitioned trying to get involved in women's sports, but there will be a good enough number of it where it'll become an issue. So I really think if we want to live in this woke world, which we don't, okay, since we have to live in this woke world, you could have a man competing in the man who, it's so confusing to even explain it. The biological man who identifies as a woman should only compete in men's sports, but they can call her Mary Jane. Now up Mary Jane's coming up to do the weightlifting, and honor that part of his or her personality by using that name and gender that they wish, but stick with the sport, with the body that God gave you, and go with that. And the same with women. Stick with the sport or activity that you're more suited toward. I don't understand what this is all about, other than equality for the sake of equality, like forcing your way into something. There's a lot of ugliness involving it. And then those of us who think this way, we're seen as the bad people who just don't know how to love our fellow man.
I know, and that's really the tragic thing here, is when they start equating it like, oh, you're a hater, or you're a bigot, or they just give you a name and they shut you down. And it's like, whoa, we're not even going to have a discussion around this, right? I never said once that I have any hate whatsoever. I can disagree. I can object. That doesn't mean I need to hate someone when I object to their lifestyle.
I object to things being forced on me, and I object to things being forced on society. I objected to masks. I object to the Pokemon. I object to lockdowns. I just want to be left alone. And I object to hearing about pastors who are not allowed to have church services, or people who aren't allowed to sing in a church, or people who have to put basically
they can hum. They can hum. The government is allowing them to hum.
Yeah, they can put a mask on with a hole cut out so they can play a woodwind instrument.
They can put a pod. You see the pod? That was ridiculous.
Oh, yes.
Them in their little pods.
So what I'm saying is I object to rampant stupidity. And all of these things, when you break them down, they're just stupid. But most people who are participating in this sort of woke culture or this Pokemon culture, somehow, something's happened to our fellow man. And they can't see how stupid it is to enter a restaurant wearing a mask and you have to leave it on till you get to the table, then you can take it off. They don't see how ridiculous it is. And they just go along. Now, there are people going along to get along, and I also think that's wrong. There may be situations where that's okay. Let's say there's a mask mandate where you live, and you have a child who falls out of a tree and breaks their leg, and you've got to rush your child to the hospital emergency room. Then I say, throw that mask on, because you want that child to be helped right away. There's no time for a protest at that moment. But putting them on willingly and going along.
Well, to be fair in hospitals, I mean, when my wife was in the hospital and stuff, and this was well before coronavirus, I mean, I had to wear a mask. So there are certain applications where, from the beginning of time, doctors have always wore masks when they operate.
Also, nail technicians who do manicures, pedicures always avoid masks because there's dust in their environment.
Correct. They didn't care through the whole thing. Those nail technicians, they're just like, what? Who cares? Nothing changed with them. That's like the only group pretty much that just nothing changed, because they wore masks the entire day while they're doing nails.
But, they closed down during all of the stuff
they did.
too.
They did. They shut them down too, which, it was like, hello, they're wearing masks. But yeah.
I know, exactly. I don't know how much time do we have till our first break.
Oh, we've got lots of time. We've got like another 20 minutes. Yeah, 20 minutes.
All right, where should we take this conversation now? Because as we all know who are listening, there's so many different things we could discuss.
We got a big audience in here tonight. I think we've got over 200 listening in. We've got lots of people, and it was interesting before the show. Someone, I think the first comment was like, "Yay, Patricia Steere is back," and it's like, she's been back for a while. Maybe you just thought that this is her first appearance. So, but yeah.
I have a channel. It's called Patricia Steere, and I have only 2 videos on it. I've made videos.
I'm going to pull it up right now for YouTube so they can see it. But also,
I need to get back on there and do more.
That's
videos.
right, you do. Yes, you do.
Been, bummed out by this situation, and I felt like
that's why you need to talk. You need to it's therapeutic, and you need to get it out so it doesn't bottle up.
That's why I wanted to come on your show, actually.
Well, here we go. I'm going to get that inspiration, so you're going to be motivated to be like, you know what? I'm going to go on, even if I'm just going to complain on my channel. I will do it, and I'm sure people would love it. Well, it's great. I put it up on YouTube so people can see it. The link is in the description for her channel. Subscribe and hit the bell notification icon. But that's right. You'll get to a point where I'm just going to delete it, and then you start, and then you're like, I'm going to delete those. So it's like you just where you're at right now.
I have left every single video I've ever done up and not deleted it. But I get in mood sometimes. I'm not a moody person, but I get in a mood about the way society is. It's not a personal life mood.
But everyone else is in that mood too, right? So it's like when you start talking, they're like, yeah, preach it, Patricia. I'm there too. And they like to hear your perspective
sometimes I think I can't do anything to help anybody. I don't have any solutions to offer except stay strong. Stay strong. In your faith, stay strong with your beliefs. If you aren't going to be getting the Pokemon, well, don't give in for any reason. Find ways around it using your family and your community. That's really all I can offer at all in any way, except for a feeling of camaraderie.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that as far as what you think was going to happen. We've differed on this before, and I can go either way. Again, it's just I like to play this side of it. But I personally think that it's not going to get to a point where you can't do anything. I have said this, and I've gone on record many times, that I think that there will come a time that the people in society that are wearing the masks are the ones that are hesitant. They're the ones that won't, whether it's Pokemon or get along with this, they're the ones that will wear the mask. Why? In order to do those last remaining things, whether it's go into a store, grab something, go on public transit. So think about this. While you're on public transit, you're wearing the mask and everyone else is not because they've got the Pokemon. They're looking around at you. What do you think those looks are going to be like? I think, for me, I said it this way. I think the government wants to do a slow grind for a lot of people. Are going to be like, you know what? I was on the bus today and I'm sorry, man, but everyone was just staring at me and they're yelling stuff. You know what? Forget it. I'm just going to go get it. You know what I mean? So I think in ways they can make it so that most people are making that decision for themselves. They're not feeling that they're forced or encouraged to do it. It's almost like that slow grind. Again, I could be wrong, but I just think
breaking you down.
I think that we're going to get to a point where we're almost, in a weird way, we're proud to wear that mask because we're not going there. If it push comes to shove, what would you rather do, Pokemon or a mask? I think it's pretty clear for most people. If you don't have any other choice, most people would choose a mask. Would you not?
Oh, of course.
I mean, in a heartbeat.
Yeah. The thing about this whole situation is that people are going to be ground down by their family members. Yeah. Just imagine a husband and wife, and the husband went out, and I'm just going to say it's the guy, goes out and, gets the Pokemon, but the wife doesn't. And just imagine the arguments. What happens if they get pregnant? And and it's the wife who wants to get the Pokemon and has a new baby in her belly. Oh. And the arguments that will ensue if the husband is the one who doesn't want to get the Pokemon. These sorts of scenarios are unfolding, pitting man against man, brother against brother, all over the world right now. And it is ripping society apart. And I'm not talking about the rest in peace, in case we need to talk about somebody who does that at some time in the future. Code phrase I brought up earlier. I think, and speaking of code phrases, somebody just mentioned that. Why is she saying Pokemon? Pokemon is a code word for the thing that they shoot into your arm. Poke a man. And I'm using that because YouTube doesn't like the real word for that. So we don't want Robbie's channel taken down. Anyway, I think that the way things are going, there will come a point where it will be biblical. It will be where those who are not taking the Pokemon are going to be, like in the Bible, wandering or living in the woods and supporting each other. That sounds pretty dire. I can't imagine living in the woods. I live in a pretty house. What will I do with my cats? How will I survive? It's dire, I know, but it may get to that point. And I don't mean next year. I just mean gradually. And it will start with, we can't accept your apartment payment without proof of a Pokemon. We can't accept your house payment without proof of a Pokemon. We can't keep your bank account open without proof of a Pokemon. You can't get groceries. You can't come in the store without proof of Pokemon. And you can't even order them delivered to your house online. We're going to cut off your electricity, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's where we're going. It sounds impossible, but look around you. Yeah. Look at the masks, or look at the masks that were used to be in your town. You would have thought that was impossible if I told you it was going to happen, and we were back in 2018. And it became possible. One by one by one, we all fell.
Yeah. And like in your state, because I know here I had mentioned that before, that everything is all opened up right now. We have zero restrictions, no mask mandates, everything like that. It's the same in Texas, correct, right now?
We have nothing, no mask mandates. However, I've noticed something new and scary cropping up, just the way the masks first started cropping up. This is the new scary thing. When you go to a business, let's say a coffee house, I've seen a few, sign on the door that says, you can enter if you've had 2 Pokemons and are fully Pokemoned without a mask. But if you haven't, you must wear a mask.
Interesting.
Now, I've not been Pokemoned and won't. And I walk in without a mask. No one said anything to me. No one's asked me to prove anything. But eventually, of course, there'll be the QR codes on the phone, I believe, that you'll have to scan. They're already bringing them out in Australia.
Russia. I was just talking to my good friend in Moscow, and she said she went to the cafe and she had her mask on and she went to walk in and they're just like, no, like she needed a QR code. And she's told me that the government is making it right now, it's just for cafes and restaurants, but August 15th, it goes to public transit. So mask won't be enough. You will not be able to go into any places unless you have. She says they're coming down very hard in Russia, mainly Moscow. Apparently, the rest of Russia's not. It's just Moscow right now.
But once those rules go into effect, just like 7-Eleven, I'm using a code phrase, when a building fell into its own footprint, those rules that went into effect post that, these rules will never go away either. Now, masks will come and go. Masks are an outward sign of our compliance to the elites. And they take them away and give them back, similar to, I don't know, a person who's torturing you. They do a lot of torture and then they give you a break. I mean, you're on a break in Canada right now, being able to go to the beach. But as well as I do, that privilege, it's not even a privilege, that right will be taken away from you. They've turned our rights into privileges that they can remove on a whim. And the masks are a sign of them doing that. And then we look around and we see others masked. And that instills in us a sense, even us who are awake to most of this stuff, it instills a feeling of panic and fear. And it's frightening when you see people without faces. I'm still not used to it when I see somebody walking far away with a mask on, but I can't tell if it's a mask or they've got a dark beard or those really scary flesh-toned masks where you can kind of see the outline of the mouth underneath. It's really creepy, perfect Halloween costume. This whole thing is not just a government overreach where they're protecting us from a real thing, in my opinion. This is straight up 1984, planned out a long time ago. And we in the truth community always knew they were going to pull something. We didn't know what it was going to be, and we didn't know when it was going to be. But now we do.
Now we do.
We're at the beginning.
So if we're at the beginning of it and we're talking about the calm before the storm, how do you see things playing out? Personally, right now, I personally think that with the Delta, it's going to be blamed on the hesitant, that a lot of the ills and problems and outbreaks and anything going forward are going to be for those pesky people that just won't believe in science.
Yes, that's exactly how they're going to do it. That's how they're going to get people to Pokemon themselves because there will be, at first, ridiculed, mocked, and then maybe even violence toward the non-Pokemon, because what they'll do is they'll ramp up those the way that they do the PCR test that Kerry Mullis himself, the creator of it, said shouldn't be used the way it's been used, and then he suspiciously died. They will ramp those things back up and push the testing so that the numbers of those who have, got quote unquote it rise. And then they'll say it's because of the people who haven't got the Pokemon. And I sound so ridiculous saying that, but you know what I'm saying.
Some people like it. They're like, I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it now. I like it. Yeah.
There you go.
Pokemon. Yeah.
Exactly. And remember, the saying for that thing was, you got to catch them all, because that's what they're doing. They're corralling all of us into a sheep pen, which is basically New World Order. So they're going to do that. They're going to, they're going to make not just those fights that we saw on video of people in grocery stores yelling at people who weren't wearing masks, or somebody isn't wanting to wear a mask on an airplane, and then they're drug off, and then all the people are on the plane going, yay, as a person who has a soul and a heart and didn't want to wear a mask because they know God gave them an immune system, gets pulled off the plane. And all the people are just so, I have empathy for my fellow man. People have been seriously damaged by brainwashing, and that's why they believe in all of this nonsense. But I still think, if I could think for myself, and I'm just a normal person, I don't have a master's degree, I don't even have a college degree. If I could think for myself and figure out that there's something really wrong with this, something smells rotten in the state of the world, then they can too. But most people don't look into this. There's people I know who aren't involved in the truth community at all. And they have told me, I've asked them, so you got the Pokemon? They're like, yes, I just wanted to protect my family, or I wanted to keep my job, or I wanted to go to Disneyland, or whatever their excuse is.
Yeah. Disney's up there on the list. I would say that Disney is way up there on the list on why you should do the Pokemon.
I want to travel. I want to, all that. Well, you know what? We were meant to go freely everywhere in the world because we were given this place to live, and they have no right to stop us. Even borders, passports, all of that. Yeah. All of that's wrong too, but that's a whole different conversation. And but people who have got it, I've asked them, do you know what's in it? And you know what? To a man, they've said no. And I've said this: if I took 3 cups filled with a substance that you didn't know what it was, that I filled, like out of your eyesight, 3 different cups with 3 different substances, and said, drink these, your number one question would be, what is it? But you're not going to ask, what is it, when it comes to the Pokemon? You're just going to believe the words, it's safe and effective. Is that the most vague thing ever? If I said that about the 3 cups, well, drink it. It's safe and effective. Nobody would pick up those cups and swig them down.
Did you hear about the guy that recorded going in and grabbing? He's like, can I take a look at that vial? I was like, oh, okay. And he grabbed it and he ran off with it. Did you hear about that? He recorded, he put it live. He was arrested. I don't know exactly what happened to him, but he was arrested. They did catch him. They arrested him. And I've never heard anything since, which is really spooky. If anyone knows that's listening in on YouTube, story. If you know about that story, about what's happened to him, I forget the gentleman's name, but he recorded the whole thing and he grabbed it because he wanted to go do an analysis on it, or, heck, that kind of makes sense. Can we not do a lab analysis and see what's in this? What's in this?
Different ones, though.
I know there is. I know.
Different versions of the Pokemon that are out there. And also, I think that the thing that's the mRNA, the thing that I think is bad, we'll get to that too. I don't think that's in all of them. I have a sneaking suspicion that some. It's
not the one, the AstraZeneca or whatever in Canada. It's not. It's not.
Right,
it's
I know
not
that.
Yeah.
But I think that some of them, even AstraZeneca in Canada, some of them don't have the active ingredient in them at all, and they're just saline. I know the ones that they've given to all the politicians and famous people on TV, those are saline. I don't think those people are getting a real mRNA, something that could potentially, well, not even potentially, go in there and get your body to manufacture something like an out-of-control factory forever. That's not how we were made. That's not the body we were given by God. And yes, I was vaccinated as a child with the various vaccines that were called for. I was born in 1963. but it's a heck of a lot less vaccines.
That's right. We were talking about that, right? Every
now.
like 10 years, they would just like double or triple the amount you needed. Because like I think it started like 4, then it went to like 7, and then 12, and then now I think it's something like 50 or 60 by the time a child is like 3 or 4. I think they have about like 30 different types. So yeah, they just keep adding more and more and more. And I think that's a whole other discussion. Is like, is this good for babies and children? Like these are heavy dosages and stuff, and that's a whole other discussion for sure. But
when they put the silver in babies' eyes when they're born, I don't think that's good for babies.
No.
Babies don't need silver put in their eyes, and that silver is like a form of colloidal silver, which is good stuff. But they do that because the mother might have, chlamydia or, some kind of genital issue. Well, why would anybody assume that all mothers have an issue like that?
I know.
Why not ask the mother?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
It's just all this control. That kind of control was a small little bit of control when we were born.
Yeah.
And it's just because it was allowed and no one, blinked an eye over it, they would bring in more and more and more and more and more. And here we are now. And guess what's happening in the future? Even more than now.
Yeah.
I mean, they're wanting to give this thing
every 6 months
to children.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the whole thing too. The big push now with children.
After they've already told us children don't get it.
Children are like hardly even remotely close to any type of risk whatsoever. And, like we were talking before about what they're finding out about all these things that are happening now with children, because apparently what the masks have done, and they've had them on, during school for like 8 hours at a time. And it's created so much carbon dioxide into their systems. And they're finding a lot of stuff now that's starting to circulate. And it's like, listen, this is not the best thing to do at all. So yeah, it's very,
Teenage
very crazy.
Boys especially don't need to be wearing a mask on their face because that's going to cause acne. And then in a social situation, they're going to, have acne all over their face and maybe scarring. I mean, that's just a little small component of this. But not being able to see each other when you're young, see each other's faces and the micro expressions that we make and that human connection, and having to stay 6 feet apart. We're losing that sort of heart connection, that thing that humans have, which is I think it's a form of electricity that we have in our bodies. I know I'm not really expressing what I'm saying correctly, but we have something magical given to us by the Creator. That is why hugging somebody is a connection. It's better in person.
Touch, physical touch is important. It's just very important. I mean, that definitely has been proven through tons and tons of real science and experiments that human touch is incredibly important for humans.
And it's something, I don't know if it's electric, it's something biochemical, but it's the same kind of thing where plants respond to talking to them in a positive manner. Now, they don't speak English or Russian or whatever, but they understand the sound of positivity. And we humans understand the positivity of human touch.
Have you seen those experiments when you're playing like Mozart and classical, they like thrive, and then if you do like death metal, they like shrivel up and wither?
Well, so do I, because I don't like it either.
No. But in general, they've done this across the board. And like, I'm not saying that people that like death metal, what's wrong with them. But the fact of the matter is, overall, there's certain forms that are more pleasing and respond even that way than other forms. But yeah, they've actually played death metal continually, and the plants just withered and like almost died, versus like Bach or, classical or that type of music. It's just very intriguing when you start getting into, and then speaking of music, it plays a big part in the psyche with humans. That's why you look at the Hollywood and the music industry. If you kind of go deeper in it, you're going to see what the messaging is. And trust me, it has a lasting effect, especially on children and teenagers.
Well, they've introduced a new type of music in the past several years that is something that I don't even know if you've even heard of before. You're talking about like heavy metal or death metal. There's a new kid on the block when it comes to music that will pollute the young people. It's called drill music, D-R-I-L-L. Drill is slang for a gun on the streets, because I'm very hood, so I know these things. No. Drill is a type of trap music, T-R-A-P music.
I know what trap
came
is.
out in Chicago in around 2010, and it's dark, violent, it's all about death. And it's
we're going to have to take that right after the break. We're at the top of the hour. Patricia will carry on with more music and getting into a lot more in hour 2. So don't go anywhere. We got a lot more coming up. This is episode 112. It's July 3rd. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, everyone. We got lots more.
listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
Be evasive, but that doesn't mean that they're telling the truth as opposed to fiction.
And Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, and there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, indicating that there were giants before the Nephilim.
And sons of God, plural. They weren't talking about Jesus coming down.
No, that's right. Yeah.
I'm Steve Crawford, host of Factor Theory Live. Join me every Sunday night from 10 p.m. till midnight Eastern Standard Time on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Check it out.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Galactic Interstellar Council on Revolution Radio Studio A, Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Join us as we traverse the starseed paradigm, as expressed in the time-space continuum that we know as the divine expression of love and light. Integrating this conscious unity into the galactic paradigm. So welcome all, both terrestrial beings and galactic beings as one. So be it. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
If you think for 1 second that the Capitol will ever treat us fairly, you are lying to yourselves. Because we know who they are and what they do. This is what they do, and we must fight back. You can torture us and bomb us. Fire is catching. And if we burn, you burn with us.
Good evening.
Are you awake yet? I hope. We've tried for years and years to use passive resistance and loud voices to make a change. The time is over. Your governments around the world have no other goal than to decimate your entire existence at the hands of the bankers and the elites. The war is coming, and it's your choice to decide if you want to be a warrior or a victim. Denial is not a choice anymore. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Not giving up. Revolution Radio. All right. Thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
Welcome back to Celebrate Truth Radio. I'm your host, Robbie Davidson. My special guest this evening is Patricia Steere. I wanted to thank Godsman 144,000 for the super chat. He writes, "Stay strong, people. Fight evil. We know who wins." I think that's really important.
Yes.
Because, you look throughout history and there were incredibly horrifying times. And we do see through the test of history that it always does turn around. There always is kind of that light at the end of the tunnel. And even when things are dreadful, we can't give in to fear. God says that he did not give us the spirit of fear. Understand, it's a very spiritual, sickening thing to let fester in your life. And you have to read the word of God. You have to know that greater is he that is in you than he who is in the world. So regardless how much evil and this world is closing in on us, we're here for a purpose, and we're to be the light in this world, and we're to be the salt of the earth. And honestly, that is so incredibly important. If there's one person that you can touch, just one person, you don't know the ripple effect. And if you change their life for eternity, that's what it's all about. So don't matter how evil things are at, you want to spread love. You want to be that person in this world to get people to see the truth, to open their eyes and set them free. So really appreciate that super chat. And we'll get back to what we were talking about. You were just talking a little bit about music.
This music form that's come out of Chicago around 2010 called drill music. There's also one called UK drill that's in the UK. But it's the same thing. It's not just rap. And a lot of people don't like rap because they think it's not real music and all. I think there's some good rap, definitely some good rap, but I don't have any rap music in my house or anything, but I do, when I hear it, I know the good stuff. But drill music is this new thing that focuses specifically on crime and really dirty sex stuff and the daily life of being on the streets. It's got a very slow tempo, and it's not concerned with metaphors, rhyming, or punchlines like good rap is, where somebody can be a battle rapper and come up with these great, even if you don't like rap, you can hear it's like a poetry, or where they're dissing somebody and it's kind of funny. Drill has none of that. It's just dark and bad and negative, and it's geared toward the kids. And it's the new thing coming. And it's this dystopian sort of music that's going to further create in young people's minds who listen to that sort of thing, this sort of degradation. The dark night of the soul moment for them won't ever come, where you're face to face with who you are, and if you have a creator, and I need to change my life, because this music is like a quicksand. And I think it's really dangerous. And it goes really well with the current society of people wearing masks and just the overall sickness in society.
It's kind of like The Walking Dead. It's kind of like The Walking Dead.
Isn't it funny? That's where we should go next. Isn't it funny how society is very sick now?
Well, that's the thing too, right? All throughout history, you quarantined and put masks on people that were sick, not on the healthy. So we've seen this complete flip that's never actually occurred ever in history, where we're quarantining we're quarantining the healthy.
And people say it like, "Oh, I'm in quarantine," like it's a normal thing to say.
I know. It's just like, "Oh yeah, I went through quarantine. Yeah, it's like no big deal." Yeah,
that's crazy.
I know, it's so crazy, eh? It's just like the stuff
all of
that
it's just crazy.
It really is. It's kind of like
I'll never
Zone.
be used to it. I refuse the new normal. And like the man who gave you the super chat said, we have to all be strong.
Yeah.
But the zombie movies and zombie books that we've been basically plagued with for the past 20 years.
Yeah, the timing's very interesting.
Yeah, and I always thought there was something to that. Are they programming us for something?
They are in ways, because if you notice, pretty much all of them, they're outbreaks, right? They're all outbreaks that are infecting humanity. So if you actually look at them and where they're going continually, they're getting more and more into this thing where it's like, let's get in protection mode, because there's a virus out there that is spreading and it's infecting. Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Usually.
They're always on the hunt for that vaccine, right? The clue, the ingredients, whatever. But you're right. It's always playing out, right? It's the same thing.
Zombies.
Sorry?
And they want to eat brains. The zombies want to eat brains. Now, in the real zombie situation we're living in now,
they want to eat they're eating your brain. Mainstream media is eating your brains.
Yes, mainstream media is eating our brains. And the people who have been put in a fear state and are doing everything that mainstream media and government says have lost their brains, so they might as well have been eaten.
That's right.
So the zombies are eating their own brains. So it's so weird how
it's funny though, like really, if you think about it, for the most part though, if there was that kind of outbreak and you've got this zombie apocalypse, I mean, they'd starve. I mean, there really aren't too many brains around anymore if they're going for the brains, right? All joking aside, but yeah, it's just really crazy. It's like Twilight Zone. But here's another thing that really baffles me. It's how, okay, let's switch gears here a little bit. How do you think that the alien agenda is going to fit into this entire world system? Now, we know about the coming deception, and we talked about this a lot through like flat earth and enclosed cosmology, but saying, hey, there would be a deception that would come. And I'm a big proponent of that. I did that in Scientism Exposed 2, where I really break down how they're all getting us into this way. But what's really intriguing is in the last 2 years, tons of stuff is coming out from the Pentagon, from officials. I mean, it is literally becoming widespread knowledge that no, like this is for real, and disclosure is soon. So it's almost like, where does that play into it? Outside of just a deception and saying, hey, we're your saviors and we're going to help you. And I'm just finding it very interesting timing how all this stuff is accumulating all at the same time.
Well, last year, the U.S. Senate passed a bill that required U.S. intelligence agencies to share what they know about UFOs, unidentified aerial phenomena, which I guess is UAPs, but we know UFOs. Which, correct. Whatever.
We're old school. We're old school.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's the technical term. It's not really UFO. It's unidentified aerial phenomena, weirdly enough. But they did that, and they say that the Pentagon, the commander of the U.S. Navy, says there are 144 verified sightings that have just come out in a new unclassified report. And this sort of thing it reminds me of the Wuhan and the bat thing. Remember, and the lab thing. Remember when people's YouTube channels got taken down, when people started saying, including Trump, that this thing could have been created, we call it the China virus because it was created in a lab in Wuhan. And, Trump was laughed at and people's channels were taken down for even thinking about that idea. Well, people used to be laughed at for believing in aliens. 100%.
UFOs. I mean, but here's the thing. The government and military officials used to think it was crazy conspiracy tinfoil hat. Yeah.
And now the government's releasing supposedly, I mean, I don't know what to believe, but the government is releasing stuff that says, oh yeah, we do have things that, we've been keeping from you. And it reminds me of the whole chemtrails thing. I remember getting in an argument in Napa, California, when I worked for a radio station. My superior there I wanted to do a show on chemtrails, and he said there's no such thing. It's contrails, and this was very early into the internet, and you couldn't get a lot of information. But I had a book where somebody was talking about it within this book, and he was saying I was nuts. But later, after the government denied there was such a thing as chemtrails, and that they could be poisoning us with maybe barium or strontium, or at least hurting the environment and the trees, the government has now admitted that they're doing it. And Bill Gates says he wants to do it to block out the sun. Yeah. So everything that they deny is truth turns out to somehow be a form of truth later. So who are we supposed to trust? Well, God, ourselves. That's it, really. A few close friends and family.
It's just intriguing how really all this stuff is coming out. And it's not that it's intriguing. I mean, this type of stuff is always surfaced, but never from Pentagon, never from, government sources and all that. So it just seems like, okay.
Could be the start of what you said, the alien agenda unfolding.
Sure. And again, we're getting into scientism, and we're getting into, why that would come. We talked about the heliocentric Big Bang cosmology that needed to occur in order for that to even be believed by, population, because, for a long time, there's that wouldn't even come into play. But they have basically the whole worldview situated where the whole world believes that they're on a spinning ball flying through space, right? And that there's other, distant planets and other life forms, and, they're more superior to us and less superior, but they're going to come and, help us with all these things. That's another interesting, I don't know if you've noticed this as well, but have you noticed that the majority of alien films, and even I'll go so far as to say Marvel, have you noticed Marvel is all coming from space, right? These are all to help humanity against foes, against forces. And I think, and I said this time and time again on my radio shows, but it's also in Scientism Exposed 2, that documentary, where literally they're going to warn us of this coming threat. But ironically, that coming threat is actually good. So it's flipped on its head, right? Evil is convincing the world that evil is coming, but indeed what's coming is good, but they convince the world to go to war with good. Like we're seeing right now, man is woman, woman is man. Like everything is completely black is white, white is black. They are flipping everything so that they can flip even when it comes in the final deception that I believe is coming on the world.
Well, there's this book that was written by sci-fi writer Arthur C. Clarke called Childhood's End, written in 1953. And it is about these mysterious overlords who arrive on Earth, and then instead of just, like burning everything and stomping everything to the ground like in a lot of Hollywood movies, these aliens help humanity. But in the end, they take all the children. It was also made into a very, 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 very creepy movie. But they take
Which one? What was the movie?
Childhood's End.
I haven't seen that one.
Book. And the movie, I think, is named of the same name.
Okay. I watched Fire in the Sky. Have you ever seen Fire in the Sky? Because it messed me up for like 3 days straight. And I was already Christian by that time, and it still messed me up. It was really, really creepy. Fire in the Sky. Very, very seriously creepy. It is look it up sometime, but it is very, very creepy. So when I watched it, I was kind of, praying. I'm like, why am I so disturbed watching this? And, there was something very sinister and spiritual about it, because normally a movie like Aliens and all this, it doesn't really bother me, right? This one, though, had a very spiritual effect on me for a while, that I was just like, man, something's really deep. But if you watch that, it's not just getting into like experiments and stuff. It's on a real deep spiritual level of where they went. But I just see this whole narrative where Marvel, all these superheroes, they're all trying to help mankind. And, when you get into like the Watchers and you get into the fallen angels and all that, they're here to kind of help us. They're here to educate us. They're here to. So the question is, if they do arrive, which right now the Pentagon and government officials are saying, like, look, contact has been made. Like, it's so crazy that the world is so nuts right now that you have news from the Pentagon coming out and everyone's like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, is that not the biggest news story in the whole world? Like right now, if it happened tomorrow, I think people would be like, yeah, well, it's 2021.
George Carlin said, no one noticed, no one cares. It kind of goes.
Honestly, like how is nobody caring about the fact that literally the Pentagon, government officials, the government is now saying they've been in contact, that there has been, like, it's not just with UFOs. They're saying that there has actually been things, if you actually start researching this, it is absolutely alarming to the level of what they're claiming and coming out with. And yet the whole world is kind of like, oh, okay, cool. I guess aliens are coming soon and we're going to see disclosure. It's like, is that not the biggest story in the history of the world?
People are too busy, playing fantasy football or, just doing something really, really dumb with their time, or living in fear, one of the two.
Well, imagine what intelligent life forms, if the world is convinced that they are indeed going so far as maybe they're the ones that created us. They're the ones that, injected into the DNA that created us, because there's always that missing link in evolution, right? Who knows, right? But here's a question. What if they are deemed amazing, benevolent, they're very, very intelligent, they're helping us solve cures. Yeah, they cure COVID in 3 seconds.
Life.
Yes. And then what do you think is going to happen with how they're going to, the narrative and what they're going to do with humanity?
Well,
to me, it's frightening.
Like in the Childhood's End, I called it a movie. It's actually a mini series, but it just might as well be, it's on, I think, I don't know what channel it was on, but you can get the DVD too when it's all together in one. If you wanted to, or you probably get it. I don't really have TV, so the only thing I can do is buy a DVD and watch on my own. Meaning I don't have a service like Netflix. I don't have any of that stuff. But like in Childhood's End, they did have, this sort of figure who looked kind of like the devil, that healed people, made people young again. Everyone was brought back to their prime, like in their 30s, where they looked great, had all their hair and, no wrinkles. And life was wonderful for a while. And then they took all the children and made all the women barren, so they couldn't have any more children. So all the children went with the devilish creature, aka alien, and away from the world, and all the humans left on Earth without a single child could never have another child. So the world died. Now that sounds like, here we go with the conspiracy theory. Because we are going to talk about our theories of what could happen, could be something that the Pokemon, and by the way, for those who are just joining us, I define Pokemon as a way to get around the YouTube algorithms. It just means
Pokemon,
that thing that pokes a man in the arm. So I don't need to say what that is and get Robbie's channel taken down.
Yeah, Pokemon.
That the Pokemon that they want to use on children and, and have every single adult, according to Joe Biden, have 2 doses. All over the world, that thing could sterilize many, but probably not all, because it's a fallible thing. It's made by man, women and men. so that there could be something like childhood's end, but slightly different, where the birth rate goes down. And they might have done that on purpose because, of course, they believe in climate change, global warming, and how humanity needs to be kept at a small number or we're going to destroy the quote-unquote planet.
Well, to be fair, I was almost siding there. I was just starting to believe for just even a few minutes. I'm like, you know what? Maybe they're onto something. It was hot in Canada. It was hot, right? I was laughing. I'm like, oh, great. The climate change people are going to be going bananas now. See, we got to pay our carbon tax. We all got to kumbaya. We got to save the planet. I was like, oh my goodness. But I've been saying that for a while, that like the climate change agenda, they're going to kick it into high gear after they initially get over, however long this takes. But, they've got to they got to do relief type things with humanity. They can't constantly keep them in a state of fear with one thing. Now they can move to something else. And now it's new and it's brand new and all that. So I think they're going to transition, once this thing kind of peters out. Climate change is going to be massive. They're already moving towards corporations right now. I don't know if you've heard about this, but investments, I mean, you and I do a show on cryptocurrency. And when it comes into, investments, what's really frightening is called ESGs. What they're doing now on investments, if the ESG number is not good enough, it's kind of like social scores in China for humans. This is for corporations. If their ESG score is too low, you're not going to be able to invest in things, or you're going to be kicked out of a lot of big investment firms. So what they're doing now, because I think a couple investors came forward and they were talking about Bitcoin per se. And they're saying, well, the ESG levels, just based on this, once they get to a nice level, then I think it's going to find greater adoption. But my point is, now they're moving into corporations where if the corporation itself is not ESG compliant, then it's going to hurt the shareholders in the bottom line. Therefore, that's why you're seeing them going woke with everything, is because this ESG behind money is what fuels the world. We know this, right? So if the bottom line is going to be affected in a big way, we're not talking about retail people. We're talking about institutionalized investors. If they're going to pull all their money because, hey, whoa, because of climate change, we have to, and you guys aren't, setting the bar here.
You guys
I think
aren't
that's scary.
Sustainable, so we're going to have to. Yeah, exactly.
Correct. So I think the whole war, because and that's the thing we've talked about a long time too, is remember we used to always talk about the war on terror. It's like, what's terror? Where is it? I'm trying to look for it. I don't see it. Prove to me that it exists. And now it's so weird. Where's Al Qaeda? Where are the Islamic terrorists? Where did they go? But they always need these invisible enemies of terror. And right now, unfortunately, it's the virus is the invisible terrorist. But it's not that. I could say that all I want. It's not. Here's the brutal truth of this. The new ultimate terrorist of all time, the most disastrous thing you can possibly think about in our own soil, are white supremacists. And you're like, wait a minute. Where are these white supremacists?
I've never met one.
Isn't it weird, though, that usually, bin Laden, they went after the leader, right? Where are the leaders of these white supremacist groups? They're talking about white supremacy as the biggest threat, the biggest domestic terrorist threat in the history of America. And yet, where are the leaders? Why aren't they rounding up the leaders, if anything? What's the names? How many people? It is so funny that so many people believe this, and yet they're erecting fences and barbed wire and military, and you're kind of like, wait a minute, is this ever going to go away? Are these fences ever going to go down? I don't think so.
None of any of this is ever going to go away. All of these different things we're talking about, they'll just continue and get bigger, and it will get worse. That sounds so negative.
It is, but it's kind of like, but we could say the same thing, and people go, well, guys, that sounds really, really, negative. But keep in mind that like going through and taking off your shoes and practically stripping to go on an airplane, that didn't always exist. I don't know if you remember, but I remember walking through.
I don't like some random guy, even if he's wearing gloves, pawing through my handbag.
Okay, but here's a question though. But do you like to go through one of the radar machines or get a pat down? I take a pat down every time.
Most of the time, I go with the pat down unless I'm about ready.
I always opt out. And it's funny when you say you want to opt out, everyone behind you kind of looks at you and they're like, "Oh, you can do that? You can do that?" But they don't even hate you. They're just like, "You can do that?"
See, I've had people mad at me. They look at me as if I'm that woman who's writing a check at a grocery store when no one writes checks anymore. Like she's going to hold up the line.
Oh, people are amazed that you can say no to it. Like I think that's the greatest thing is if you're ever.
Don't know.
They just don't. They don't know that you can say no. You can just basically say no. I'm going to opt out. They're like people are like, oh, I don't have to go through that machine. No, you have a choice. The nice thing is about that. There's still, I guess, some choices to be made. But my point is this though: the airports. It's never going to go back, right? There was a time when it was not like that. You remember that. I remember that. We're older, and we remember just walking through pretty much. Practically, like there was no taking off shoes and belts, and you know what I mean?
You didn't have to put your liquids in, check your liquids, and have this little, none of that.
Heck, you could be like smoking a cigarette through the airport onto the plane.
You could have a full bottle of hairspray that would ruin the quote unquote ozone hole in your handbag and take it on the airplane.
Totally. It's funny. Eh? We're so old. We remember when you could smoke right through the airport and onto the plane.
Exactly.
The same cigarette. Yeah, it's funny, eh?
Right.
Now it's like, it's like liquid. Sorry, it's so annoying when they got to chuck it out. It's just like, sorry, no, we got to chuck that. Oh, you got your colone's too big or your perfume?
Paper thing behind your head on the seats.
Yeah.
Paper thing that would be clipped on either side that they'd remove between passengers.
Yep.
Because men used to wear hair oil in their hair. Now there's like mousse and gel and stuff that does your hair if you're a guy or a girl, but that's not oily. But back in the 50s, men's hair had that.
I remember ashtrays. Remember the ashtrays? I was on a plane one time and I looked and you could see the ashtray all welded together. And I'm like, I said to someone, I said, do you know what that is? And they're looking at it and they're like, I don't know. What is that? Like, you don't know what that is? Like, why is it like that, right? It was like you could just see where the ashtray used to be. And it was kind of like, and it was an older plane, right? And they're just like, I don't know. What is it? I'm like, that used to be an ashtray. What? An ashtray? You could actually smoke on planes? I'm like, yeah, you could smoke on planes.
Yeah. And I always thought
I never did, by the way. I was too young, so I'm not that old.
And that was okay. But now they have a sign in the lavatory, as they call it, which is a weird word. No one uses that word except on an airplane.
Yeah, I know.
Where there's a sign that says, you can't smoke in here, where before you could smoke anywhere on the plane. It's so weird how rules.
I didn't like stow. I didn't like that word. Like, please stow your luggage. Stow. Like, who says stow?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, what about flight attendant and stewardess? To me, they were always like waitresses.
By the way. Oh, no, are you ready for this? Are you ready for this, though? The cockpit, they want completely removed because of the name. So they want it changed. Aviator. It's called. It's going to be called Aviator. Aviator something.
No, that wouldn't.
No, they're getting so insane. Getting back to how insane this world's getting is where like anything is offensive. So they want all these words changed, right? And it's like, wait a minute. I don't think anyone for the right mind looked at that word and thought of anything to do with gender. It was a word, right? It had nothing to do. But of course, they're like, no, it's offensive, and we want all these things removed. But you get into just everything that's going on. It's insane. It just seems like everywhere you look, you're just like, are you kidding me? The cancel culture is just out of control. I mean, anything that offends them. I mean, they're going into like cartoons, they're going into TV shows. I mean, I don't even know half the shows that you could even watch that we grew up on that would even exist now today. One by one.
They're going to change the name from the cockpit to the Washington Monument Pit, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do. Oh my goodness, it's just so insane. So many things just drive me crazy. I don't know. Sometimes you want to just laugh or cry.
Well, the thing is that I'm curious as to why most people out there aren't laughing at all of this and crying at all of this. Most people I meet think it's perfectly normal. I told somebody about the fact that it's possible that the Pokemon could sterilize people in the future. This person said, well, that would be good because there's too many people on the planet.
Oh, don't even get me started on that.
What if one of those people sterilized is one of your children?
I know.
And they kind of didn't flinch. They just sort of changed the subject because a lot of people, it's like they go into cognitive dissonance when you say something.
The entire population of the entire world can fit inside Texas.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's just unbelievable to me how just with a bunch of control, indoctrination, media manipulation, they can have the whole world believing that we're overpopulated, we're running out of resources, and you're kind of like, and from my standpoint, from a creating standpoint, if you're looking as biblical, and you're saying, okay, God creates the world, even if you're not a Christian or believe in the Bible, logical sense, a creator creates the world, and he's like, oh no, I created it too small. Oh dear.
Small.
And not only that, he basically mandates it as a commandment at the beginning, be fruitful and multiply,
right?
And
multiply.
Exactly. Right? So I just find it so insane, especially when I run into Christians that start believing in this. I'm like, how does that even make sense that he's going to create something? Even furthermore, why would he create something that he's like, oh no, I made man too powerful. They're going to destroy the whole thing. I mean, it's so silly. It's so silly to think that mere men, we have the power to destroy an entire thing that God created. It makes no sense on that level. It just doesn't.
If you look at an eye of an animal or your child or your own eye in the mirror and you see how complicated just your eye is, you realize that the force that made that would never make a world that wasn't big enough for his creation.
Or be able to sustain it. Or be able to sustain it.
Destroy.
We're going to run out of water. You hear this? We're going to run out of water. Right. It's like, oh, water's running out. It's like, okay, it's made, what is it, 80% of the entire world is water?
Right.
It's like we're running out of water, though. And people are like, oh, yeah, I guess so. But going back to overpopulation, again, it is getting insane. I can definitely see with where we're heading with all this insanity that they are going to have a one-child policy in multiple places. That's coming. I mean, they're looking at China.
They do in China.
Well, they're looking at China as like they want to emulate it. They're like China, is basically the next super economic power. They're seeing kind of, what it's doing. It just seems like everyone's echoing China. You got the World Economic Forum, the UN. You've got, all these different things are all like China. And you're kind of like, wait a minute, you got government in my country that are sitting there talking about how they're doing some great stuff. They have concentration camps in their country. And yet the whole world isn't talking about the horrifying human rights violations that are taking place. Everyone is just taking the money, doing it. And it's like, guys, you're supposed to be about, making a big deal out about human rights violations. And yet nobody talks about China hardly.
Well, also to go back to the thing where I told this guy that maybe the Pokemon, which is my word for the thing that goes in your arm that's sharp, so I don't have to say
what in the world could you be talking about? I am so confused, Patricia. What goes in your arm and that's sharp?
No, because they just joined, so they don't know Pokemon. The Pokemon, I said that this could maybe sterilize a great percentage of people in the future, and then he said that would be a good idea because of overpopulation. The fact that overpopulation is a lie is one thing. Anybody who's flown in an airplane and looked down at all the empty ground before they get out of, able to view that knows that there's no overpopulation going on. But the other thing is that this person thinks it's perfectly acceptable to sterilize fellow human beings.
Insane. That's like eugenics. That's like Margaret Sanger with Planned Parenthood. I mean, the stuff that she was into, which is so crazy that
it was related to Bill Gates. I mean, not Margaret, but Planned Parenthood in general. So
I know. But I mean, talk about someone that was seriously into massive eugenics. And what's really interesting is when it comes to this whole Black Lives Matter, they never say anything about Planned Parenthood. Do you know how wicked and racist she was? Especially against blacks. I mean, it's horrifying to think about the origins, and yet they're going to teach all of, the population that inherently the country's evil. We got to take down all the statues. Well, if you're going to take down the statues, start with Planned Parenthood. Shut every one of those things down because they were all birthed from eugenics and incredible racism, right? So the whole world's backwards. It's all about their agenda. It's really sad. I just say to people all the time, like, yeah, it's kind of sad and disturbing for us to like witness this, but there's been many, many people that have lived through some incredible evil empires, and it just seems like on a world stage we're going to be dealing with very, very high level of evil where everywhere we look it's evil, and that's just the reality of our world, unfortunately. I mean, I just don't see it turning around anytime soon. Now, I'm not saying there's no hope, and I'm not saying eventually it will, but I see it more in my children and my children's lifetime, not in mine. I see this as a gradual thing. The good news is things just don't instantly happen overnight, even though as fast as it goes, it takes time. You've still got it. Let's just take the states, for example. You've still got some really great states that are standing firm and saying no,
Florida,
right?
Texas.
Correct.
Yes.
You've also got three branches of government. And again, I will get into government because like it or not, regardless, you can say what you want. But if you're in the other side of the camp, it is less insane than communist and Marxist. That's one thing I'll say. You could say anything you want about conservatives or Republicans, but one thing I will say, they are not insane Marxist communist psychopaths. They're not. They might be crazy with their wars, or they might. But if you actually stop and think about it, we're not dealing with right and left anymore. We're not dealing with Republican or Democrat. We're dealing with Republican conservative against psycho communist Marxist. That's why I think it should be alarming that, guys, it's not like it was before. We're talking about go and read Karl Marx. Go read what happens in Marxist and communist regimes. You will be praying for Trump to come back. You will be praying for Bush to come back. Trust me. I'm not even joking. I'm not even joking. You will pray that Bush would maybe come back and run again. Like I'm telling you, it is so absolutely insane that you will, even if you stand firm and you think that everyone was evil and they're puppets, fine. You will gladly have a very easy to deal with puppet rather than someone that literally wants to make your life a living hell. The one thing I'll say when it came to other times in history, your life wasn't a miserable hell. They might have been doing evil stuff, but it wasn't to the degree where they were literally ripping every single thing out of your life. And that's what we're seeing right now. And these psychopaths don't want to stop.
Well, sometimes things do turn around. Like China, we were talking about before, they originally had a policy where they could just have any amount of children they wanted, like everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then they instituted the one-child policy. And then just this year, they rolled it back so that you can have 3 children.
Do you know why? My prediction is because they want to take over.
Out and couldn't have the children they wanted, and it's a shame for them.
Yeah, and I think based on numbers, that's a whole other thing too. When you get into populations, on sheer numbers, they can take over the world based on numbers, right? So
they want a bigger army.
Well, the average person, I think, in Western world have like 1.3 children or something like that. Where if you look at other, I mean, I'll get into even Muslims. Muslims have an average of like 6.7 or something. You get into China. I mean, the whole thing it's based on sheer numbers. And if you're going to like run the world, and these communist Marxists talk about taking over the whole world, right? We've seen it time and time again. That's what they aspire to. And it seems crazy to think like, oh, possibly one day they could run the whole world. We're kind of seeing a communist takeover that's already taken place. I say it all the time. Guys, it's not like they're trying to take over America. It has been taken over. Now, the question is, can certain things reverse it? But make no mistake about it. I would say that America, I'd say Canada, has been taken over.
Well, there's some things in China, too, that people don't really know about. The mass killings of the group, the Falun Gong, and some Tibetans and other people are being slaughtered, and supposedly organs are being harvested from them. So there's a whole different side to China than the side of China that many people think, which is progressive. And
there's concentration camps. Concentration camps are happening that with the Uyghurs. Like, I mean, if you just look it up, I mean, they're actually broadcasting. It's not like, oh, some conspiracy said this is happening. They ultimately know that this is happening. Multiple families have come forward and saying that, people have just gone missing multiple times all over China. They literally re-educate you through their concentration camps. They do. They make no mistake about it, but they believe it is better for the state. It is better for the overall consensus. That's where we're heading to, is where all of a sudden the individual goes away. There is no such thing as the individual. It's the herd. It's the collective. Like the Borg. They're basically assimilating us to the point where there is no free thinking. It is, you think the way that that the full country or that agenda or belief system believes. So we are seeing this play out. If you read the handbook, you'll be like, yeah, everything they're doing right now, they've done before. They're just doing it differently now.
Yes. All of this has been, my dad used to always say, and it's not his quote, but there's nothing new under the sun. And
that's Ecclesiastes. It's Ecclesiastes from the Bible.
Is it really?
It is.
I didn't even know my dad even knew about the Bible.
He knew the Bible one. That's from Ecclesiastes. Nothing new happens under the sun. But I will say, I almost looking at it, I'm like, I am hard pressed. Maybe someone can find something somewhere in written history where where there was a civilization that men one day would say, we're women, and the society would say, yes, you're women. I've never seen it.
In Greece.
Are you sure?
Whether or not Greek history is entirely true, because we don't even know if history is real, really. We
sure.
Great-grandparents, but
benefit of the doubt. Let's take the benefit of the doubt. Yeah.
There was a situation where that kind of thing happened, not the way it is now. And then there were eunuchs supposedly in Egypt. So there was this men being more feminine thing. I don't mean gay.
No, that's always happened. I agree with that. There's been cross-dressing. There has been all sorts of deviations for sure. But there's never been a time where just regular society, a normal standing man, not dressed as a woman, not even operation, goes, I feel like a woman today, therefore I am.
I feel like a woman. That song.
And there we go. Another hit by Patricia Steere. It's like we're on the radio. We're going to the single's coming out.
Who's the woman who sings that song?
I don't
Country
know.
singer. Everyone knows. I don't really remember.
I don't know.
But now the Falun Gong is an interesting group from mainland China. They were founded in the 1920s, and they're into these the moral teachings that are like Buddhism and Taoism and all that. And they do this meditation thing where they do exercises in real slow-mo. You've seen those before. It's kind of neat. But that all sounds fine, whatever. But the leader of it has a belief that, get this, aliens have started to take over the world. Now, the weird thing is that there's a lot of truth to that, but not in the way we think. The people that are in charge of our world now, some might call them archons, some might call them, reptoids or reptiles. Some might call them Satanists or aspects of the devil or the fallen. So in a way, what's taking over the world is a super dark force, and it's everywhere. there's a hidden hand that's running this world. And I'm not talking about Joe Biden. He probably doesn't even know where his hand is, but
Satan and his minions are influencing men. I mean, that's been going on since a long time.
And it's getting obvious with the agenda that they've got.
It's almost like the time is short. It's like, let's strike now and let's all engines firing at once. It seems like they're really taking this to... It's like they're seizing on this opportunity. And again, they never let a crisis go to waste. We know that. But it almost seems like it's all or nothing right now. It's like if we don't quite get what we want done, things are going to fall apart. It's going to take us another 4 or 5 decades. It just almost seems like now it is the ideal situation and it's just pounce, because it's like they're not letting up and it's getting more and more insane. And forget just the whole Pokemon thing. You just look around on the critical race theory. I mean, teaching children that white people are just straight evil and racist. Like they're fighting racism with racist ideologies. Like they're not even making a mistake of it. But like I would say, critical race theory is just so horrifyingly bad, and it's now going into the education, the military, the medical. And what's horrifying about the medical is at a certain point they will decide who lives and dies based on equity. Based on, all these type of factors. But make no mistake, when it gets into the military and it gets into the medical industry and the education and kids are growing up on this, it is horrifying on what the country is going to become. So, I mean, we're not going to recognize it, in a decade. I mean, we're probably not going to recognize it in 2 years.
Elderly people in care homes across the world.
Oh, so sad.
Basically euthanizing them.
Yes.
Maybe they didn't know they were doing that, but they were told to give drugs like, I think it's called midazolam or something, end of life drugs. I mean, you know what? I don't want to be on any drugs when it's my end of life. I want to be very conscious of what's happening, what the transition is like. Even if I'm in some level of pain, I don't want to even think about that. But, I don't want to be knocked out on some drug.
Sure.
Like it's not the way we're meant to be. It's not how we've been created.
Unless you're in pain. Obviously, unless you're in pain.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right. I mean,
are you sure? Are you not? You're not gonna. If you're in immense pain, you're not gonna want to take.
Right.
I will.
You know what?
My hands
right.
up.
I mean,
I'd be taking only in that I don't want to be in a state that I don't experience it. But if I'm in massive suffering, I'm like, give me something to take away. I do it when I have a headache. I'm a baby that way, right? So of course I do it on my deathbed if all of a sudden I'm in a lot of pain. I mean, when my dad was passing away, obviously he was on pain medication because it was excruciating watching that.
It's different than that midazolam stuff.
Yeah.
It basically is like putting your pet to sleep, but with your parents.
Yeah.
It's just not right.
You're so wrong on your politics.
If the parent wants
but
it,
so wrong, it's
in the
like
way they
listening
want
to
commit
ABC,
suicide,
CNN,
and
Fox, or NBC trash.
That's not what we're talking about.
You shouldn't call yourself flat
another thing
earthers
that's
or
interesting
AWOC.
is the whole thing with Elon Musk and Starlink, how he has had his rockets supposedly put in space, quote unquote, these satellites that are interconnected that look like Christmas lights on a string, white Christmas lights, to provide satellite internet access. There's supposed to be thousands of them. And some people who are even truth seekers have seen them going across the sky like a string of lights.
I got to interrupt just because I think it's funny because we got a $5 super chat and it said, you're so wrong on your politics, but you're so wrong. It's like listen to ABC, CNN, Fox, or NBC trash. You shouldn't call yourself a flat earther. Oh, you just deleted it. It's like, or someone deleted it. Anyways, I wanted to read it. I thought it was funny. He actually paid $5 to sit and get upset with what we're saying. Oh, I just thought it was funny. I've yet to see someone do a super chat.
Fiat currency.
Yeah, thanks for the. Yeah, I'm going to be converting it to crypto. So, anyways, so go on. Sorry, I just thought I would bring that up.
What is Starlink? What really is Starlink? If it could be completely fake, like the car shot into space, or it actually could be something. Now, it's not in space and all of that, but what is it? What nefarious purpose does that have? I mean, Elon Musk is not, he is charming and he's funny, but I used to think he was innocent to everything that's going on, but I kind of think he's not a good guy now. I think
just now. I mean, I don't like to the extent of his knowledge. I mean, I don't know, but
I used to think Neil deGrasse Tyson didn't know and was a puppet for the elite.
I'm still there. I just think he's just completely
and then later
oblivious.
I've changed my mind that he does know. And I think Elon Musk does know that he didn't go into space. But, he's so charming, it kind of fools you. And it makes you think, somebody controlling him.
So here's a question. Before 2015, right? 10 years leading up to 2015, that entire time, how come you didn't clue in to the world?
I don't know. It's a very good question.
So let's just say you had a platform. Say you had a radio show, which, you've done radio in the past, or let's say you had a television show. Do you think some people would be looking at you in that regard and saying, oh, and you were spouting off whatever, and they're just like, oh yeah, she totally knows. She's in on it. You know what I mean?
People were saying when I was speaking truth on my
I know
that I was in on it.
I know.
I worked for NASA or something.
Yeah.
So people say,
well, that's just when paranoia, we can talk about like Matt Powerland, but that's when like paranoia goes to your head and it becomes really unhealthy because you start thinking everyone's out to get you or they're all deep state agents. I mean, I have my own card, for goodness sakes. I mean, if people are aware, I actually have my own card in that, the conspiracy deck or whatever that they created in the 80s.
Illuminati game
card. The Illuminati game, yes.
And like you.
I got someone that laminated it for me and gave it to me at the Flat Earth International Conference.
None of them look like me.
Oh man, I had so much fun with it. But I even had a pastor at a church put it up on screen and sit there and say, yeah, I don't know, maybe he's a deep state agent, and I'm like, I'm in Canada. How could I even be a deep state agent? I could be a deep province agent, but not a deep state agent.
Deep province agent. That's hilarious.
Have to have fun with
Elon, though, I mean, he's a charming guy. He's a successful guy. I don't know. Is Tesla actually successful? Really? Probably not when you break it down.
No.
But what
not
is
yet,
he
anyways.
in on? He's in on faking space, so guilty as charged.
Yeah.
But before 2015, when I was asleep, I really wasn't asleep. In many years, and I think it might have started when I was quite young, when I realized that people aren't always nice to each other. And that happened when I was maybe 5. Teeter-totter, playground, recess, when a kid called me over to go on the teeter-totter with him, and we were having fun up and down, and then all of a sudden when I was up, he jumped off and ran away, and I slammed to the ground. And I was shocked and cried and realized people don't always have your best interest at heart. And I remember that experience and having this sort of revelation about people. And maybe it wasn't don't trust people, but keep an eye out because somebody could do something bad to you. And then I sort of folded into the matrix and people were doing bad things to me and my freedom. And, I thought 9/11 or 7/11, as we should probably call it on this show, I thought that was real. I never investigated
I like
it.
Slurpees.
I
like the Slurpees.
Yeah, exactly. But at one point in 2015, something called me to go on YouTube, not as a content provider. I didn't have a channel.
As an interviewer.
Stuff. Yeah. And I didn't even know about Flat Earth. I just started looking at YouTube. And one thing led to another thing, led to another thing. And I finally started looking at Flat Earth. And then I was sort of called to be an interviewer, I imagine, or I maybe not called. Maybe I just decided to do it. I really don't know. But what changed in me that opened me up to that and brought me from just a regular person in the Matrix to a person who's looking at the Matrix and seeing what it is and dissecting it. We have to all ask ourselves, what is it?
Yeah.
Are we born for such a time as this?
Your show was the very, very first interview I did, on the topic. I still find that so incredible. If you actually look back on all the interviews and everything I did, it's like you were the very first show is where I went public, on a public platform, and you did that interview. And I remember my wife and I were living in the basement in the house that we have now because it was my parents' house. But, just sitting there, and you went in, and again, you did this with all your guests, but you really wanted to get to know who is this person, what makes them tick, it wasn't just flat earth stuff all the time. It was like, let's hear about your story and how did you become Christian and like, how did you meet your wife? And you know what I mean? Went through the whole thing with you. So it was really great, and it was unfortunate. And I mean, we all know that on the internet, there's always like trolls and there's always like hateful people, but it just really was, I don't know, maybe in a way it was naive for both of us to think that, hey, as long as we're, preaching this truth and getting it out there, I mean, everyone that believes, similar, I mean, they're all going to be our friends. I mean,
they're all going to be on our same team.
Who wouldn't be on our team if we're fighting against the Globers and scientism? But no, were we wrong? I mean, it didn't matter. If you even stepped out of like, well, you believe in a firmament, you heretic. Of course, it's a ever expanding, infinite plane. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Whoa. We all agree that we don't live on a spinning ball flying through space, but stop getting carried away. But oh no, if you dare believe this type of worldview, you're a gatekeeper. You're a deep state agent. You're like, guys, like we're not that big. I mean, we're not that important to the elite. I'm sorry to burst your bubble because I've been out it for a while, but it really drove me crazy when people thought, oh, we're taking over the world and everyone's going to open up flat Earth and everyone's going to believe it tomorrow. And I'm like, guys, like put it this way, it's going to take decades and decades and decades. We're not that big. We're not on the radar where they need to send in so many deep state agents to throw the thing off track. But yet
remember when the C-19 thing started? I was trying to think of a way to say that without saying it. The C-9 thing started, and a lot of people involved in the Flat Earth Awakening were saying, well, they're just creating that to distract from the Flat Earth Awakening.
Yeah, I know. I know. No. I was like shaking my head. That the SMH. Oh no, shaking my head. I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah, worldwide, on a scale, they're going to do this
every
because
country.
Yeah, I mean. But again, like you want to feel really special when you're in, type of belief system.
And we
you want to think everything's
really
gets
special.
You. No, there's no doubt.
This is our creation.
There's no doubt.
Creation that we've been gifted to live on.
For sure, and that's the thing. That's the pure attack that we're seeing. We're seeing the absolute attack on the creation, but also the created order. Getting into what we were talking about in the first hour, and a little bit here in the second, talking about how they're messing up even the created order, male and female. Every aspect of creation is being attacked. And, I was saying this for years and years, talking about how they're trying to, if it's stationary, then they're saying it's spinning on crazy speeds, right? Every single thing that is constant, they want to flip and change it and flip. And, it's like the world is upside down. But now we're at a whole point where we're like in the upside down twilight zone. Because you look around and you're just like, what in the world is going on? Like it is getting...
Twilight Zone, Zombieland.
There you go. There you go. And most people are just like, yeah, okay, this is the world now. It's like,
new normal.
Do you realize how insane things are now? Things are insane. Things are insane. Like they really are insane. But again, it's weird to think that quite possibly, I hope it doesn't happen this way, but I might not ever see you in person. I might not ever see a lot of people in person because
we talk so much, it'd be so boring to see each other. Again.
It's just weird. It's just weird to think that you're kind of like, I don't know, these countries are big, but you get kind of claustrophobic. You're kind of like, like I can't leave.
Be able to do something
I know.
is what bothers me, even if I don't plan on doing it. I mean, I've been to Paris a few times. Was I planning on going to Paris again? Not really. But the fact that I probably can't ever makes me mad.
That's what Mark Sargent used to say about, you remember in Flat Earth Clues where he's talking about like if you give a cage, they feel kind of claustrophobic, you give them a big area. But men are like that. The minute they know there's a boundary, there's like an end or there's a top or they're trying to get out. They're always trying to, do something there. So it was the same way. It's like everything was fine. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now you're not going to be able to leave your country. And you're like, I need to leave.
Well,
like, I can't be in here.
I've got to give a hats off to some different countries. Germany's really excellent with this. And of course, England with these massive marches of people protesting lockdowns and
the media is just quiet too. Eh? The media is just quiet. Like there's not even a peep about like a million.
But in America, silence. I don't think there's been any protest. Maybe some that I don't know about, but nothing to the scale. And I know England's an island, and so et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's easier. It's America's massive.
That's a good point, though. It is a good point. You had a million people, I think in London or wherever that was. It was a huge amount, and it's like, where have you seen that in the States? It's like an embarrassment to say, oh yeah, America, they're patriotic, and it's like actually they're not at all. Like I think it was a big wake up.
Patriotic, and they believe everything that the government says on the government programming TV
It's a good
box.
point. It's a good point. So, I mean, big hat off to, across the pond there because you guys at least know how to really stand your ground and make your voice heard. Even though they're, completely censoring it and not allowing it to air pretty much anywhere, it is getting out and people are seeing, a massive amount of people that are saying, no way, this has gone way too far. So, and we need that. We need people in a peaceful manner, don't start burning and rioting and looting and raping. Don't be like Black Lives Matter or Antifa because honestly, it's not the way to go. And of course, the minute you even do something like you tap someone on the shoulder, they'll be like, oh, that's it. That was an attack. That was assault. And did you see that?
Sexual assault because I identify as a woman or a man or something.
They would lose their mind if you even tap someone on the shoulder. Like they would lose their mind.
Well,
Absolutely.
people are definitely on edge right now,
Yeah.
but there are people who've gone through all of this, and I don't know what's up with these people. You know the term of NPC, non-player character, people who are kind of not all there or don't have a soul. I don't know if I believe that's true, okay? I'm not saying that I believe it's true, but my idea of what that is has really kind of ramped up a little bit due to the type of people I've seen who just accept anything that they're told without any sort of investigation. Like I said earlier in the show, people will take a Pokemon in the arm and not question what's in it or how it works or the effectiveness, nothing. They'll just take it. And the same people I've asked and said, if I put 3 unidentified liquids in glasses, and I told you to drink them, would you? And they say yes.
Yeah.
Are these real humans?
Yeah.
That's just not normal at all. None of it's normal to just comply.
Well, there was a sad story, Rose 777, on with the Baby Truther show with Jaron and David Weiss and Alex and stuff. She actually just mentioned a story the other day that her really good friend, I think she even said best friend, she pleaded and pleaded and pleaded, please, give me 5 minutes, let me talk to you. Anyways, she got Pokemon, and then she was telling her again, like, please let me talk to you, really, really think about, the second Pokemon. Anyways,
I know this girl. This is a girl that Rose has had on a show.
Well, she went and got the second Pokemon, and she's gone now. Gone. She was gone 2 days later. So she's just
not that same girl, but
she's distraught because she's like, she said on the show it's her best friend, and she pleaded, please just give me 5 minutes, let me present it. She never gave her the time. She's like, no, she's like, please, just hear me out. She didn't, for whatever reason. She was, it started dividing her and her best friend, apparently, this whole thing. But she said, please give me the peace. I mean, I don't care if you do it, that's fine, but give me the peace at least that I said something, and I'm like that too.
Right.
We have to get to a point right now where it's not about convincing someone. Sometimes it's about saying your piece in a loving manner because you really do care. Sometimes some people will see that it is out of love and that you care, not that you're trying to just be like, look, dumb. You know what I mean? People won't respond if you're trying to tell them you're an idiot and you start
condescending,
scaring them.
etc.
If you do it out of love, then you tell people and say, please just give me, 15, 20 minutes. Let me talk to you. You know what? It can go a long way, right? But again, in this case scenario, she didn't, and now she's dead. So
I can't believe that.
She mentioned the other day on the show.
I mean, we do know that from what we've read anyway, that there have been people that have died, of course. But this is somebody we know, Rose 777, whose best friend died. So this is quite close to home. It's
correct.
Not just
but they had on that show multiple people calling in that had stories of people they knew that also are gone. So I'm just saying it's not just. I mean, we can verify that because obviously this is someone that we know. But again, there are other stories that came in talking about it. And I think, unfortunately, remember when this first came out, like, do you know anyone? Do you know anyone that
right.
I think, unfortunately, when we're going to start going, do you know anyone? Unfortunately, we're going to know many that are
the thing
having
is
problems or
I
complications.
don't really know anybody who got sick. And I know that I had a cold in February before it all happened.
Someone's saying in the chat right now that they actually have it right now, but no way, no how are they getting Pokemon.
Yeah, the thing is that I had a cold that lasted for quite some time in March of 2020. Not March, February of 2020. That's before this even blew up. So it couldn't have been it, or could it have been?
No, they're saying now. I mean, there's lots of investigations saying that it was in the States November of 2019. Right.
But the thing is that I didn't go to a hospital. I just was,
it's tough to
I don't feel so good.
Yeah.
But and also none of the symptoms of it are ones I had. No loss of taste and smell, no COVID toe, no hair loss, no unable to breathe. I just had a runny nose and a slight, tiny little girl cough. And,
we got sick. I'll get into this for sure because it was like nothing we've ever had, especially me.
Ever had. Yeah,
oh my goodness. I mean, it was like something, and I couldn't even comprehend it because it wasn't just like the flu. It wasn't just like it was something
that. The flu, so.
Yeah, well, I have for sure. And I mean, this was something. I mean, muscle aches, and I mean, I didn't have any breathing issues, but it was definitely something. And now this was January of 2020. My wife had just come back from a death. Her sister had died, but the whole family were over there. They came back from New Zealand, which was an international flight, which makes sense if you follow that story. But what I'm saying is the good news was I'm like, hey, we don't, we're totally fine. We've already had it, which they're trying to say, even if you have it, which flies in the face of anything scientific, that's actually happened before. We won't get into that. But the reality is that we definitely had something that was not like something we've ever had before. It was multitudes greater and different. So that's why I've never gone on the record saying I just think it's 100% a hoax. I think there's something here. It's massively blown out of proportion.
And I see it as like a repurposed flu. There's different kinds of flu. Every cold I've ever had that I can remember was slightly different than the others. But it doesn't matter. You and I disagree, but we don't disagree in a way.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Oh, that's fine. I don't think at the end of the day,
after the show, Robbie, and then you.
Yeah, that's right. Nobody has a clue. Bottom line, and I'll say that on record. It's like at the end of the day, I don't know 100% anything. I'm very careful.
No one does.
But it's fun.
Of course, the doctors and the scientists trust the science. They're the ones that say they do.
The science is settled. There is no debate. There is no debate, Patricia. The science is settled.
The funny thing is, the science is settled. There's no debate is not a sentence because science is never settled.
I know.
Period.
I know. Well, they've been saying this for a long time.
I know.
And they just continue
when
to say
I got my cold in February of 2020, and I didn't have the body aches or the symptoms of it like you did. It was just a cold. I went out to meet a friend to eat, and I was at a Chinese restaurant, and I said, you know what? I need to go home. I don't feel good. And I didn't feel bad when I drove there. Felt fine. When I was getting dressed to go there, I felt fine. But while there, it hit me, and then I went home and then was sick. Funny thing is a joke, though, that, remember how Trump used to always say it came from China? Well, I was in a Chinese restaurant when it hit me.
Oh, really? That is
Hilarious.
interesting.
Well, of course, complete coincidence,
Yeah. I love how they're telling them, everyone, all his advisors, everyone no, don't call it China flu. Don't call it the China virus. Yeah. No, that's just, don't do it. He's like, China. He's just like,
the way he said China.
I just love that. I don't care. I say all the time when it comes to Trump, it's so refreshing when he just doesn't care, regardless what you think of Trump. It's just refreshing when he's like, everyone's telling me not to do something. Yeah, whatever. I'm not going to listen to anyone. I'm going to do it anyways.
Biden is also hilarious. But
he's hilarious in a whole new way. That's for sure.
Way. Right.
He's hilarious. Biden, did you actually hear him whispering? I don't know. Maybe people that are listening in heard when he whispered. He started whispering and he stopped and he couldn't stop and he just kept whispering like this. And you're like, what the heck is going on? Why is he whispering? Like he's in a press conference.
His brain gets caught in a groove. And
no, honestly, I don't think he's going to last much longer. I think that something's going to happen. He's going to have to step down, and Kamala is going to take his place. I've said this for a long time.
That's what people have said, but I kind of think he'll see it all the way through.
You think so?
Might even get reelected.
I mean, it seems like the dementia is, and this is standard. It's a sad thing. I mean, we shouldn't laugh in one breath, but also it's sad. He's deteriorating. He's deteriorating.
Yeah.
Did you see when he wanted to go talk to those people and Jill, his wife, grabbed him by the arm and she just yanks him and she's like, no.
Handled by so many.
Oh, did you see when Jill grabs him? No U.S. president has ever been manhandled by his wife. And that is the only time where she literally says, we don't have time for that. He wants to go talk to these people. He's walking kind of through a golf course or something. And they're sitting there in the patio. And he's like, oh, and they're like, he goes to walk over and she grabs his hand. She's like, we don't have time.
He's not walking. He's ambling over.
Yeah, he's ambling. Yeah.
Really like your elderly, grandfather who might go insane or suddenly spout out racist stuff or blow his nose on the tablecloth.
I got you 2.5 billion. I got you trillion. Yeah, but speaking of which, this whole idea of all this stimulus, all this money, getting into economics, I mean, that alone is going to have such devastating effects. The inflation that's coming, and I say this all the time, people don't understand
are already up on food and gas.
It's just starting.
I've noticed them.
Yeah, it is. And again, it's just the beginning.
You've seen it in Canada as well. The prices.
Groceries. My wife says the groceries are still going up. I told her, I said, you know what? You're starting to notice it. It's now just begun. You have no idea how bad this is going to get. Like the ripple effect hasn't even got to us yet. And they're printing more and more money. And now I think by next year, we're starting to see now it kick in like high gear. Right now, we're just starting to see that. There is no reversing this. Things are going to get very, very expensive.
Okay. Well, since we're talking about food, then groceries, food shortages. That's another thing people say are going to be coming. Now, this could all be some sort of, hype thing that you see on those doomsday prepper channels.
Sure.
Is it real? Is it not? Are we being Richie from Boston right now? Who I kind of like, actually. But, I'm not making fun of him. But are we... Is
he still going, by the way?
Shortages? Yeah, he's on... one of those BitChute. I think he's on BitChute.
Oh, okay, cool.
He does exactly the same.
I was on a show once and stuff like that, but yeah, he does a lot of great stuff for sure.
He actually was kind of a jerk to me once, but
was he really? Weirdly enough, I'm going to go talk to him right now. Right after the show, I am going to give him a good speaking to. But listen, for everyone listening in, there was a guy actually, I think he called and said, hey, why is Robbie hanging out with no one Satanist? And I said, call her a Satanist one more time and I'm banning you. So I don't even tolerate anyone talking nonsense about you anymore.
That's the thing. When people say stuff like that, other people who don't really understand research or being able to read another human being and see that they actually are good, believe it, and it just travels down the road, and then everyone thinks it's true.
But then again, you were the first one to show me that I was a lizard. Remember that way back in the day, you sent me that video of that person that analyzed me and went close into my eyes.
Yeah, they said you were a lizard person.
I laughed so hard. Like at least we could laugh at these things because people would spend 50 minutes analyzing your face.
Richie bought meaning some video that somebody had sent him about me, that I was actually not Patricia Steere. I was a Russian spy's wife who was just caught on CCTV fleeing across the border. And he agreed that that's what I was by looking at this video, which was a red-headed woman with her husband who was a spy caught on CCTV. It wasn't me. It didn't really look like me other than a red-headed woman. And it was just...
Well, there's not many red-headed women in the world, Patricia. I mean, there's
not
only
at all.
a few.
Or men. Oh, wait, you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There's going to be this new conspiracy, the red-headed conspiracy. It's like, they've united on a show together.
Exactly. But if you think about the fact that Richie is a truth seeker and he has a lot of great information, yet he did such poor research on me, it made me think, man, maybe a lot of stuff he says on his channel isn't true. And that's what I always think when somebody is just completely wrong. Like if somebody, if a channel I liked, Robbie, came out with a video saying Robbie Davidson is a reptilian, I'd be like, I met him, like I've been around him and his wife and his kids, or, Robbie's a Satanist. I'd be like, no, not true. But if that's the thing they're pushing, I kind of unsubscribe because they just don't have good research. Their other material.
I think so too. I agree with that too, because when all of a sudden your discernment is off so much at that point, do you deserve to even be listened to? No. Especially when all of a sudden you've been approached, you're like, no, my researchers are Satanists, and you're kind of like, I know for a fact that's not true. So yeah, I agree with you. Just unsubscribe, because a lot of other stuff you're going to get is probably way off, and it's just going to lead you down a path where all of a sudden you're going to turn your back on certain people that would probably be good. We all say this all the time. Chew the meat, like, and spit out the bones, sort of thing. But like, you can take the good and ignore the bad. You even said at the beginning of the show, prefacing that we don't agree on everything. We don't, right? But we agree on a lot of stuff. And that's the main thing, is it doesn't matter. This whole crazy nonsense where people are like, oh my goodness, if someone disagrees, then there's hate or something. And it's like, no, we don't have to agree with one another. 100%. We don't. And we can still be friends. We can still...
And even Richie, time went by and he was only on YouTube. Then I unsubscribed from his YouTube channel because that just hurt me. Even if we never knew each other and we never spoke, I'm like, dude, I'm always in your life. He used to do live streams saying hi to everybody. I'm like a normal person, and you believe some stupid garbage? Okay, so I unsubbed, never, dealt with that again. But then when he ended up on BitChute, I saw him there. I subscribed and I listen to his videos now. The thing is that I let it go.
Sure.
I let it go because people are fallible. People
let
have
it
their
go.
own personal
let
problems.
it go. Can you do the song? I like to hear you say.
No, I don't know that one, but I know it's from the movie Frozen.
I know, but it's just that song, right? We hear "Let It Go," and people just,
yes.
I hear that song in my head.
But it's true though, and I let it go because it's what I needed to do for me, and I still avail myself of the occasional. Oops, sorry, my cat just made a loud noise and knocked something down.
They're always trying to interrupt you when you do shows. Like, you have to have a talk with them and say, listen, okay, kitties, line up. All right, when I'm doing shows, you don't bother me, all right? I don't have many rules in this house, but I have that rule. And just give them a talking to, Patricia, seriously, because they're out of control. They always are like, okay, you've talked long enough. We want your attention. And they come in all the time.
They're so cute, but they're also very destructive. But so I did let it go with Richie. I mean, and didn't, and whatever. And now I subscribe to his BitChute, and I do enjoy his material. But he is a bit on the overly,
he's extreme.
Not paranoid, but overly pushing, world end. And that's not what we want to be here on this show either.
No.
We want people to have hope. We still have hope.
For sure.
I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but one of the things that I know means that I've got hope is I'll buy a new lipstick. What does that mean? Well, I plan on wearing it, which means I plan on going somewhere, which means I plan on living.
Right.
I'm not buying a coffin for myself right now.
That's right.
I'm still planning on,
FEMA is planning to get a coffin for you. I'm just joking. I'm teasing.
I still plan on living.
Yeah, of course.
Life.
Yeah.
And even if things are dire, we all have to be grateful for all the great things we have.
Oh, for sure.
Be grateful for all the stuff that we experience that maybe people aren't ever going to get to experience again.
Well, it's true. People are looking at it right now in the aspect of all throughout this. There's been amazing things. People spending more time with their family, their children. I mean, the whole type of thing. For example, the heat wave, people were all huddled up in a room that had air conditioning, and just kind of, those memories, making those memories where, normally if everything is decadence and everything's flying high, people are, too busy for anything, right? So there has been good that's come from it. And I think one big thing is reflection, where you kind of reflect and saying, what really means things in life? Like, what is most important? Was it traveling all around and gallivanting, or should I be spending more time with my family, or should I be? So I just think there's a lot of stuff. And overall, I think God could be saying, look, in all these times of clampdown, maybe it's time of reflection. Maybe it's time of meditation. Maybe it's time of saying, hey, what is really important and what do I want to focus on? And bring good things into my body rather than bad things. So I think good can come from it. No matter what situation you're in, you can, it's not just about hope. It's about reflecting and saying there's positive even in the negative, like a silver lining,
Well, we have to look at it that way. We have to look at the fact that we've not been able to eat in restaurants, so we've made home-cooked meals. These are things that we should have been doing anyway.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of things that have been weirdly good about this. We've had time, many of us who didn't go to work because our jobs were shut down, to focus on things at home. Maybe that was painting or, redecorating or cleaning or gardening or something. Maybe there's people out there who started gardens because they were worried about like a food shortage and the hyperinflation, which is also a very good thing. Where people have been, preparing by
food's a good
away
investment because we know that food's going to get more expensive. So it's probably a good idea to buy a little extra now, not because you think the world's coming to an end, because it's going to be that much more expensive in 6 months. So you're buying it on sale right now.
Have gotten into crypto, which a lot of people think is a bad thing, but they've gotten into finding ways, let's not even say crypto, finding ways to weather an economic storm that are alternate ways than the regular banks. Maybe that's buying silver. Maybe that's buying gold. Or food.
Diversified outside the system as much as you can, right? Food, water, these type of things.
Yeah, I know that, you can't eat gold or, at all.
I know, I love that of all people when they're just like, you can't eat gold. It's like, yeah, we know that.
And you can say the same about storing food. How much are you really going to be able to store? 10 years, 15 years? I mean, there is a limit to all of these things.
Sure.
But we have, many of us anyway in the truth community, have kind of like, tightened up our social circle because we weren't able to go anywhere, tightened up relationships with loved ones, hopefully. And we've also noticed that sometimes within our own families, even if it's blood, we are more distant than pure strangers.
Absolutely. And we went through toilet paper shortages already, so we know what that feels like, right? We've gone through, things where there's some bareness on the shelves. So the whole idea that it couldn't happen again or even be that much worse, it's not so much that these preppers are like, oh, they're always looking at the end of the world. No, not necessarily. There could be a big storm. There's a prime example. Yes. What happened when that storm ripped through, Texas, and all of a sudden you're without power? Like
in February.
Exactly. Yeah. There's always things that can happen.
I'm getting a whole house generator that runs off natural gas. Well, if they shut off the natural gas, I'll be out of luck. But at least when regular power outages happen, I will be set. And it's the little things that happen. Instead of just saying, oh, well, nothing will ever happen like that again. Yeah. Instead, when you go to the grocery store, buy 2 jars of peanut butter instead of 1. I mean, that's all it is. And in the end, you'll eat it anyway, or you'll be able to give it to somebody. But what I meant by the fact that our family members and close friends that we thought were close to us and listened to us and we shared a lot with, this event has shown the cracks and flaws in some, but not all of those relationships. We've talked about the good things, but the bad things are similar to what we were talking about. Rose 777's best friend got the Pokemon. There's people who's in the chat on YouTube who say that their mother got the Pokemon, even if they've tried to get her not to, or et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Where you realize, who are these people who birthed me sometimes? Who are these best friends or fathers or brothers? They don't see what's going on. So it's almost like you've got like Stepford wife family members, or zombie family members among you. And it's, or friends where you're wondering like, wow, I never would have known this about these people if not for this situation. This situation has revealed a lot about our fellow man. Yeah. When I go and see people wearing masks, even if the mask mandate is done in Houston, I think to myself, I never knew there were that many really super gullible people till now. And I guess that's not really positive for me to know that, but I'd rather know the truth about things than not.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, well said for sure. Like I said, it's crazy the times that we're in. Like I said, Upside Down Twilight Zone is the way I refer to
Zombieland.
it. Zombieland. Oh, that's right.
It's a 3-part.
Upside Down.
Twilight
right.
Zone Zombieland.
There we go. That's going to be the name of the next show, I think. Upside Down.
Yeah.
Zombieland. That's so funny. So crazy.
Unwieldy title, but
oh my goodness! Upside Down Twilight Zone Zombieland is coming to you. You know, maybe I'll make it into a movie or something. But it is quite something when, you know, we're participating in this. We're looking all around us, and we're just like, what is going on?
What is happening? You know, the 5G thing is an interesting thing. Remember,
where did it go? Where did it go? It was like the biggest news everywhere, and it's like no one even talks about it.
When this started in 2020, everyone was saying, oh, you know, the sicknesses people are having is all caused by 5G, not, you know, the CV. And
I never bought it, by the way.
And I looked around Texas, and we couldn't find any active 5G towers. They're building it, but nothing was active. And I'm like, but people here supposedly are getting sick, so that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But, you know, for sure, 5G is probably not good for you. I mean, I'm going to say...
Well, if it ain't good for you, 6G and 7G probably going to be that much better because they're on their way too. They're on their way too. And remember, you know, not to discount anything with 5G, but 3G, I mean, there's enough videos on 3G, and 4G was like, that was going to kill everyone, you know. So, I mean, as technology goes, there's obviously inherent risks with that for sure. But, you know, it was a stretch saying that all the stuff was caused by 5G. I just was like,
I'm thinking that the 5G could be tied in some way, but in a different way than we were thinking originally. And here's how. We've all seen the videos on YouTube and other sites where people have vaccine sites or the entire body becomes slightly magnetic, and they can hold a magnet or they can hold forks, spoons, even a cell phone.
It's very intriguing. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Some could be fake for sure because people just do stupid things like that. But I know a person we both know, Chris Van Maitre, who went to his workplace and found one of the guys he works with. He's a surveyor who has been vaccinated, a couple of them who were willing to, you know, bare their arm and show their vaccine site, and he was able to put a magnet on them. Now, Chris isn't the kind of person who'd make that up. He didn't make a video. He didn't.
No, Alex just had someone on yesterday, the same experience and stuff. He had her on the show,
so
and
I think it's real for the most part.
Yeah,
it's real.
It is actually happening to some people for sure. It is.
So what does it mean?
I don't know.
And how could it potentially be tied in with 5G? Not that it's going to kill the people with the vaccine. I don't mean that, but it could be part of this Internet of Things, where the people have now been coded and are part of the Internet of Things, which will be run off 5G, 6G, 7G, etc.
Interesting.
So it could be tied in. I mean, I saw this really crazy video, and I can't prove it's true or not. There's a woman in a grocery store, like one of those big box stores, where they scan your goods like beep, beep, you know, with a little handheld thing as you go through. She took the handheld scanner and scanned her friend's vaccine. And it read numbers on the little handpiece. Then scanned her other arm, and it said no code. And then tried it on someone else. No code on one side, and numbers came up on the other side.
Interesting.
The vaccine side. Oh, I said the word vaccine.
You did. Yeah.
I take it back, YouTube.
I think I said vaccines are incredibly good. Like, we'll just have a disclaimer, right? We love them, and they're great, and yeah.
Everyone needs to get them.
It's funny. That's what it's funny. Speaking of shows like on the Baby Truther show, they do that all the time. It's funny on the first hour. They'll just be like, here, you know, and being facetious, right? But they'll just for the YouTube, you know, because again, they're transcribing everything, right? So they'll see the thing where it's like, we totally support. We think, you know, and it's like they'll go off.
The Baby Truther show is really fun.
It is. You know what it was spawned from? You know what it was all spawned from? Russian vids. He accused them of being baby truthers because they didn't believe in. What was it? Jaron didn't believe. Oh, it was the January 6th thing. It was that whole thing. He didn't believe that anyone got shot there, which I stand with Jaron. And yeah, she did get shot.
And see, I don't know. My thought about it, we're talking about the insurrection, the girl.
The worst attack on American history.
Yes.
And it's like an armed, put it this way, an armed insurrection, and no one had any guns. How does that work? How does that work?
It was just it was a motley crew of weirdos.
No, but an armed insurrection, the worst armed insurrection on America's soil, and yet no one had any arms. Like they had no guns. No one had guns.
Allowed in too. Hey, let me open these doors for you.
Don't get me started on that. That was such a setup. Oh my goodness, just
such
horrifying.
a setup. So weird. And who knows if it even really ever happened? Even
I watched it on multiple angles. That's one thing I will say. I watched it on multiple angles because you have a ton of streamers, right? So I remember watching
her funeral.
That's weird. And you know what's even weirder? Who shot her, and why aren't they releasing the guy's name? It was a secret security guy.
That's the part that makes me think.
So bizarre.
That maybe nobody was shot. This woman was in the military, supposedly. No mourners, no funeral, nothing.
Well, maybe I'm a baby truther too. Maybe I'll join with Jaron and David and stuff, and I'll say I'm a baby truther like you.
Never was shown in court. Never came forward. And then, like if somebody shot one or us, it would.
The tragic thing, though, that the only, let's just say that is true. The only person that really died from an attack at the Capitol was someone on that side. You know what I mean? I find that really interesting. It wasn't like, all these police died and all this.
Woman.
It was just very intriguing. Yeah. Do we know her name? I feel so bad that I don't remember her name.
You know
right
what?
now.
No, but that's another.
No, but like say her name. Say her name. The fact of the matter, the media just played it down.
Dropped the ball.
I know
on that. But they were all about with the Black Lives Matter. Say the name Breonna Taylor because she happened to be dating.
Someone will know in the chat. Someone will know in the chat. We got to say the name. I'm not going to end the show until we find that woman's name because she was
her name was Ashley.
Ashley Bobbitt or something, right?
Ashley Bobbitt.
That's right.
Babbitt.
Babbitt.
Yes.
Babbitt. Ashley.
Now, maybe she did have a funeral. Maybe this, maybe that. But I don't remember hearing about it.
Well, I watched them break it down. I remember watching them break it down, Jaron's points, RV's points and stuff. But overall, gonna have to say I'm gonna side that she was absolutely shot. That just based on the impact, the blood. You start researching it. I'm just like I think it's a far stretch. It could.
You know what?
It might be.
If with usually the fake people, you look them up, you find one picture.
But here's the question: why wouldn't they shoot someone? Why wouldn't they shoot someone? Because they build it as the worst terrorist attack on American soil. Yes. I'm surprised they didn't shoot more people. To tell you the truth, I mean, if you think about it, they could have probably got away with shooting like 50 people because they were trying to enter a very secure area in the Capitol. Why didn't they just open fire and take out 50 people? So I don't know why everyone freaks out about one person. I'm surprised it wasn't more on the side of the insurrectionists. The ones that were trying to attack the Capitol.
See like 3 different pictures of her. But it's just the same pictures over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, now, but why? But why? They didn't say her name though. But my point is this: why would you even fake that? When I understand if you're going to use it to rally the troops. For example, Breonna Taylor. Let's just say you're going to use a name like that and get everyone all up in arms. But why would you want to stage a whole thing where all of a sudden you wouldn't even mention it and no one would even know her name? It would just go away.
It's so
that
weird.
doesn't make any
sense.
Weird. It doesn't make any sense.
Everything we're talking about is a big head scratcher.
It is. It is. That's the thing too. I think even as truthers, we're all kind of scratching our heads because we're like,
what's happening here?
This is even bigger than what all our research, what we thought we had a pulse on. Is like we really don't. There's a ton of stuff where we're like we don't know exactly.
And it makes me think that either I go through periods of time where I think this is all a master plan, a great chess game with the elites. I hate calling them that because that sounds positive, but the ones in charge at the top whose names we do not know, that they've got this all planned out over multiple years and et cetera, and it's all been culminating or moving toward this and then other things in the future. Then other times I think they're just a bunch of people trying different things to throw against the wall to see what sticks. Mm-hmm. They're as clueless as us.
Yeah.
But they've got more power.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. They definitely do. And it seems like every day they're trying to secure it more so with changing the voting laws. That's a whole other discussion and another show that we could go into. But just if you look at what they're trying to do with the filibuster, the Supreme Court, the voting laws, the immigration, why they don't care about like millions of people crossing the border over the next year is because, hey, they're the next voters. It's all a numbers game for them. So I just see how they're securing it. I said someone the other day, they said, you don't think that they're going to flip it over to Republicans in the next election or after that? I'm like, honestly, I don't think that we're going to see the other side in the next decade. Well, I don't know about ever again. But I would say personally, a decade or more, we are going to have a communist Marxist rule, if not longer. Well, I just don't see anyone overturning it.
They're not going to let this go.
But let's say they're going to flip it. Let's say they flip it. Let's just say let's say that Trump or whatever comes back, he wins. Okay, at that point, then what happens? Everything that they've done is going to be erased. Like, to me, it just seems like there's so much stuff that's secured.
Trump wanted a lot of this stuff too. He supposedly is like the vaccine father. So
well, he said he couldn't do a lot of stuff either, though. But even Trump, even when he was trying to do stuff, because he didn't have like full. I mean, if they have all three branches of the government, but I have a hard time believing that conservative or Republicans are going to have all three branches of the government. Once you have it, you do everything in your power to keep it forever. And these guys are so insane that it would be like, yeah, but the Constitution, like, screw the Constitution. What are you going to do about it? We have a gate, we've got a barbed wire, and now we've got like a poison going through the military. So, I mean, once you have the military and once you have all these things in place, I mean, you can talk about patriots all you want, but I'm sorry, you got an armed freaking military. What are a bunch of patriots going to do? You know, like not to.
And where were the patriots during any of this?
Well,
really?
exactly. It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. But they'll say in the background they're staging. They're always staging, right? There's going to be a big attack in February. Oh no, didn't happen. There's going to be a big attack, and they'll never tell you who it is or what groups they are or what leaders or anything. They just say there's white supremacists and they're staging an attack.
Well, let's talk about the Proud Boys. That's an interesting one.
Sure.
There's a line of clothing. It's called Fred Perry. Maybe some men in the audience might be familiar with it. Maybe flat earthers should be familiar with it because it's a laurel wreath, like, you know, around the map, the UN map. It's the laurel wreath symbol, and it's on polo shirts predominantly. And it is pretty much big in the UK. But I have a lot of Fred Perry clothing. They make women's too. It kind of is Tennessee looking. Country club Tennessee looking. And Fred Perry himself was a tennis player in the 30s, I think, 30s, 40s, etc., and was, you know, hanging out with the Hollywood crowd of that time, who I don't think were as evil as the ones of today. But anyway, this guy, Fred Perry, now there's a clothing line called Fred Perry, and it's quite nice and somewhat expensive, so it's a kind of luxury item. Fred Perry polos that are yellow and black, for some unknown reason, got adopted by the Proud Boys as their uniform to wear. Not uniform, but when they would go out publicly, they'd be wearing these polo shirts. And the colors yellow and black. And now, I don't know much about the Proud Boys because I haven't seen anything that they've ever done. But the world, who's paid any attention at all, has been somewhat brainwashed to think that the Proud Boys are a racist hate group, when really I just think they're a bunch of guys who believe in male roles, female roles, traditional families, etc.
Yep. They're not the KKK here. I mean, they're making it sound like, you know, all these people are out there.
I mean, there may be a few bad apples.
Oh, sure, there always is. There always is. But as far as a big, significant group, you know, name them. Like, who are the members? Who are the people? Who are the leaders?
Right.
Like, it's so weird. It's like this vague war on terror. And now it seems like, you know, the white supremacists have become number one. Conservative Christians, you know, MAGA, Trump. Oh, but I'm saying that everyone's lumped into this one group where they're like, and it's one thing if you're lumping somebody into a group, but the language they're using is horrifying, to be honest. To be honest, it's very, very horrifying language, because it's like, you know, these are very serious threats. You know, I don't think on the other flip side, it was ever talked about, quote unquote, Democrats in the same breath for the average. And I'm talking about just the average American Democrat, right? We're not talking about leaders here, right? We're talking about just the average. It just seems like we're getting to a whole new level where the way they're talking about this other side is stuff that has never been talked about, whether or not it was Republicans or Democrats or whatever. It's not about politics. It's now about the fact that you're talking communist Marxism. They're proud of it. They're not hiding it anymore. They're like, yeah, damn right, we're a Marxist and we're gonna transform America. And by the way, the worst threat and what we have to get rid of first are those conservative, pesky, white supremacist, conservative Christian, whatever. They're lumping that all together and saying, you know, homeschoolers, that's lumped in there as well. These guys are very, very dangerous. And most of America is starting to say, yeah, you're right. And they're like, they're not thinking why that's right. They're just like, yeah, it's scary, isn't it? Yeah.
It's the same as the thing with the Proud Boys, because the Fred Perry clothing line even put a disclaimer on their website where you can order their clothes that says, Fred Perry does not support and is in no way affiliated with the Proud Boys. It is incredibly frustrating that this group has appropriated our black-yellow twin-tipped shirt and subverted our laurel wreath symbol to their own ends. And it goes on to talk about this. to be absolutely clear, if you see any Proud Boys materials or products featuring our laurel wreath or any black and yellow related items, they have absolutely nothing to do with us. And we're working with our lawyers to pursue any unlawful use of our brand.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is that the Fred Perry people have now brainwashed all of their clientele about the evil of the Proud Boys. And I remember there was a while during the whole Black Lives Matter thing when they were saying that the Proud Boys were out there with the Black Lives Matter people, and the Proud Boys were the ones doing all the looting and burning. But I saw the footage myself and didn't see a bunch of white guys running around in yellow and black polo shirts burning stuff.
Yeah.
Did you?
No. Yeah, and I saw a lot of damage and destruction and fires and stuff, and yet the mainstream media is like mainly peaceful and didn't say anything. And yet people that were even just in Washington on January 6th, I mean, they're seeing serious time. I mean, it's just so hypocritical based on their standard.
They're in jail for just going to that event. And
correct.
The funny thing is that during that Trump rally, I'm not a Trump fan or anything. I find him funny and interesting, and his wife's gorgeous and has nice style. So I appreciate that. But, I'm not even a voter. I'm not even registered to vote. But when Trump had that rally, when he went to Washington and invited everyone down, he said it's going to be a wild time. I don't think he meant we're going to have an insurrection on the Capitol and kill the congressman. Of course not. But that's how it was portrayed to the media. Yeah. If I was nearby Washington, I would have gone. I would have said, hey, Robbie,
I know.
Let's go to that thing.
I'm horrified thinking of that.
Piece of American history. Not to be go Trump, go.
No.
Just to watch a piece of American history unfold. And you and I could have been in jail for the rest of our lives. Just for simply showing up there.
Yep. Which is horrifying to think that they're able to even do that in America, right? And you're thinking about all these countries where
it's happening.
No legal representation either. The lawyers are reporting this. The lawyers are reporting how they're being treated and trial because they're basically getting them under the Terrorist Act, right? But again, that was all started 9/11, Bush, the whole thing. But we're living in a world now where it's horrifying if you even identify or you're even present, standing there, witnessing, watching. You were there. You know what I mean? We got to come after you. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, and again, keep in mind with the whole thing when it came to Facebook the other day, where all of a sudden these things start popping up, and many people listening in will probably know if they're on Facebook or they've heard through their friends is like, hey, you have been exposed to extremist content. If you need support, click here. We know that they target people with anger and disappointment. And all of a sudden there's all these things popping up on Facebook, and you're kind of like, well, wait a minute. You kind of see where that's going to go, right? First of all, they're going to start labeling it like, do you know someone? Maybe report it if you see it. But also the fact that they're saying get support because we want to help you through this. I just think it's really crazy the world we're living in where all of a sudden it's like, I put a thing on Facebook where I said, hey, post your last meme that got you to the point where Facebook classified you an extremist. And it was pretty funny. There's already like 300 different posts in there of all these different memes. But all these memes are normal stuff that you and I and anyone would post. And yet it is considered extremist. But that is such a dangerous word because I remember 10 years ago, an extremist was considered someone that was going to bomb or blow up something. You know what I mean? Like that was a scary deal 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But now it's anybody that goes against that narrative is considered an extremist.
All those bombings and blowing up things, I won't name them because we don't want to get your channel taken down. Those have all probably been government affairs, let's just say, that weren't what we've been told that they were. Like looking at things like Ruby Ridge, for example, all of these things are not what we've been told, and we get fooled by. What about the group of people who died all drinking the Flavor Aid / Kool-Aid? That as well also wasn't what we've been told. So nothing's what we've been told, and we're being told now that we need mental help, or that we're kind of the new terrorists. Just for speaking our mind.
We're science deniers. We're science deniers, Patricia.
It's upside down world, like you said. Yeah. Zombie Twilight Zone. So.
That's right.
But also, let's talk about the death of John McAfee.
Sure.
That this guy, he's a UK guy, American guy, a computer programmer guy. That kind of fits in with a virus. I'm going to say that computer virus, and Bill Gates and all of that. He was a presidential candidate. He was going to run in the Libertarian Party. Well, he was found dead of offing himself, I'll say, to not put a keyword in there, in a jail, I think in Barcelona, Spain. And, his wife came out and said he wasn't offing himself a sidle. So
she had said that he actually said, "I'll talk to you later this evening." The last call to her or whatever. So she had mentioned that with Adam Kokesh. He actually came on and he was quite emotional about it because he was really good friends with John and his wife. And he's like, absolutely not. There is no way that he committed
he had
suicide.
that tattoo and did that, I think, tweet showing his arm.
I won't be
tattoo.
suicided. Yeah, he's like,
the tattoo said whacked. You know, when you whack somebody like the mafia does with the dollar sign in front of it.
Yeah.
And you know, this guy was super charismatic, not a depressive. Now we never know what goes on behind closed doors, of course. But this guy just didn't seem the type. Now, here's an interesting conspiracy bit. Now, I don't have any sources on this, so I can't prove it. But supposedly, he had all the dirt on a lot of bad people in politics, and it was being stored at one of his houses that he didn't use anymore, that was in Florida, in a condo.
I know, I heard about this too, right? It was like right by that condo. Yeah.
Is the condo that fell to the ground in its
own. But again, if you know there's something there, why don't you just go in and start a team and start looking for it? Why do you need to level something?
I don't know. I think they just
decided
to just destroy the whole thing.
Apparently they're looking at multiple condos now. I just saw a thing today because when that was built and the way it was, apparently over time it cracks and it starts rusting the steel that's inside the concrete. Apparently all along that way, there might be a major problem because they're investigating 400 buildings just in that area. But in Miami, there's a major problem that could actually be, getting a lot worse with these buildings.
When I saw the video of this thing in Surfside, I used to live in Florida for my junior high years. Not that area, more like Hollywood, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. Excuse me.
We remember radio stations down there? You said in junior high? Were your parents running radio then?
No. My parents divorced for a few years.
Oh, okay.
And then got married again.
Gotcha. That's right. You did tell me
that. After about 6 or 7 years apart. So my mom went to Florida during the divorce.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Where her mom lived. And then they got married again and got back together.
That's cool.
And my dad had a midlife crisis and had an affair, and it was brief. And
I love the stories, though, when it happens like that, and then they all of a sudden remarry and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Oh, and they stayed together until they both died happy.
That's really cool.
And also kicking themselves for the years that they lost together. But the good thing is that they were both good parents as separate parent units for my sister and brother and I, and we always felt loved by them, and it was kind of fun.
Was it super hard when it initially happened? I'm sure it was.
Yeah, we were all crying. It was horrible, really bad, just horrible. I mean, I was 9.
I personally never gone through a divorce. My parents were together forever, so it's I've never had that experience. I can only imagine how hard it would be.
Well, they weren't fighting out loud before the divorce. I didn't even know it was going to happen, but we went to breakfast. We went out of our bedrooms to go eat breakfast, and my dad's face was all red, and I thought it was weird, and I sat down. It was before school. I remember I was wearing my Girl Scout uniform because I had Girl Scouts after school. So on that day, you'd wear your Girl Scout uniform to school. Mm-hmm. And I was 9, sitting down, and my mom said, "Your dad has something to tell you." And she made my dad say it because he was the one who had the affair.
Oh, wow.
We weren't told there was an affair then. That was found out later. But we're
just we need some time or something?
Go live separately, but we love you. It's not your fault. And then my dad checked into a hotel, and then he got an apartment. And that's how that went. And, we went and visited him every other weekend, and we had a whale of a time. It was super fun. He always made the visits hilarious.
So was he with this woman shortly?
That's the funny part. This doesn't have anything to do with our story.
I know, but I'm just curious.
Well, what happened was that he'd met her at a radio station that he owned because he was a radio station owner, because he branched out from Kalamazoo, Michigan to other stations in other states. He opened up the station in Charleston, West Virginia, WXIT, and she worked at a hotel. Manager of a hotel in a hotel bar, I don't know, something like that. This woman who wasn't that old, she was only in her 20s and he was in his 40s, and she was blonde and buxom, sexy, I guess. Mm-hmm. And my mom looked more like Jackie Kennedy, very mild-mannered with dark hair and more conservative. Mm-hmm. So, my dad fell for this sort of a bit of a floozy blonde.
Sure.
And they had an affair and hid it from my mom. I don't know how my mom found out, but she did. And she told my dad, "You got to go." Yeah. And he did go. So what he did when they split, while the divorce was being filed and taken care of, he got an apartment, but he didn't live with this woman. We never met the woman, but we found out later he got her an apartment there too, in a different building, not in the same building.
Interesting.
So that when the kids weren't there, they would be together, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I get. And then one day we went to a park on a picnic, a year after the split.
Yeah.
And at the park, a woman in a convertible drove by a red convertible and waved. And my dad said, "Hi, hey kids, I want you to meet my friend." And that's how we were introduced to her.
And then
she actually was a lot of fun and really cool. And then they ended up splitting because my parents decided that they
So
they
it wasn't
never
very
had
long.
stopped
They were together then, like as far as
probably 6 years. My parents were separate.
Okay.
7 years.
Good
Yeah.
enough. Good enough.
So I was in high school, I was in high school in Florida at the start, and then I finished high school in Michigan. Wow, how do we even get into this topic?
I don't know, but back then, in those days, it was just so easy going.
Nobody I knew was divorced.
Wasn't it easy going? No, but in general, the world was just so easy going back then.
Oh my gosh, it was so simple then.
It wasn't.
And I know there were bad things happening.
Sure.
There were wars. There were
gangs. There were gangs. There were, but like.
So we were being lied to. MTV came into play in '81. I graduated from high school in '81, and MTV was loaded with programming and horrible stuff. Like not just some of the music, but look at the logo with the space and all of that from MTV.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And we've been sold a bill of goods as a world forever. For all of our lives and all of our parents' lives. In fact, our parents were super victims. They had no chance of awakening. Luckily, with this flat earth awakening, a lot of us who were still living in the matrix or had a few inklings something's not quite right, but never really put the pieces together, kind of got involved with flat earth. And then that led to, another thing, which led to another thing, which led to another thing. And we ended up with a pretty big awareness that everything is almost a lie.
Yeah. It is. It's pretty mind-blowing when you get into, how big that deception is and just how many
we
things.
We could name the things that we could hold as truth probably on both hands.
It's true. It's a very, very short list.
God, family, pets. I think I'm done. I think
that's really sad. That's really sad. You have to think that through. But honestly, if you can only come up with 3, it's pretty sad. Pretty sad indeed. But yeah, we're like obviously out of time here. We've gone half hour or more, actually 40 minutes on the after show over. No, it's all good. It's totally good.
Probably before we started talking about my parents, there was a good point to be made. But sorry, we don't remember what it was.
No, but this is like the after show. So people are on YouTube. I mean, we've been off, Revolution Radio for over a half hour now. So this is like the after show where you get kind of tidbits. So you learn a little bit more information. And it's just fun for people that have tuned in. Thanks so much. So many people listening in and catching us on YouTube. And really do appreciate your support. Some people are asking if Patricia has a new YouTube channel. Yeah, the link is in the description.
Kind of.
Yeah, but for some people, they're like, this is the first time you popped up, right? They're like, what? She's back? It's been like 5 years. It's like, no.
It's called Patricia Steere, and I've only made a couple of videos on it, and I should go make more videos on it.
Yeah, go comment on them, encourage her, because if anything, we want to hear more from Patricia. I know you do here in the chat and on this radio show. Maybe this will encourage her to start, once a week or once a month or just going on and sharing your thoughts. Yeah, you should.
I have it in me, but
you've got a lot to share, Patricia. You got a lot of things.
Thank you for letting me be on your show. Actually, it's been really fun.
It's great having you on.
And nobody out there needs to get a Pokemon. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, so don't be collecting those Pokemon cards. Don't be trading Pokemon cards. Don't be doing anything with those Pokemon, okay? From now on, we're anti-Pokemon here, all right? So we don't want to see anything like that. We don't want to see Pokemon games. We don't want to see Pokemon plush toys. We don't want to see Pokemon anything. Just that's it. Pokemon is
the dark
dead
side.
On the dark side.
Thank you, Robbie.
Well, I really appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely having you on. For sure, we'll have you on again real soon. Like I said, if you want to catch... we do a cryptocurrency show on Axion Today. We've been doing that for quite some time. And also there's been previous shows. We did one, actually we've done a couple here in the last year or so on Celebrate Truth. So if you're new, you can check out the playlist of the Celebrate Truth radio shows and check out all the very cool shows that we do here. Patricia's been on a few times. And I think, what was it, when I was with Pastor Nate Wolf, we did End in the Year with Patricia Steere. That was the first time.
Oh, right.
You came
and I'm
back.
often in your chats. By the way, somebody in the YouTube chat just reminded me of what I was saying, and we don't want to go on a long
All right,
thing.
we got to get some closure on it.
It was John McAfee in Florida, and I did live in Florida. And what I was going to say is that area of Florida where his condo was, Surfside, I mean, I've been around that area. There are a lot of old buildings, and old buildings sometimes do fall. Yes. And I don't mean that I truly believe that that building was kind of whacked. But when I remember before I knew anything about John McAfee was a connection to that. He may not even be. I saw that building fall into its own footprint, and I thought, horrible, horrible, horrible tragedy for those people. And then I thought, that seems like a great way the mob would do a hit to get one person by just getting rid of all of those people, to hide the fact of getting rid of that one person. So,
yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Like I said,
we'll never know. The news.
No, we won't. We won't. But there's a lot of concern apparently of a bunch of buildings. But I'm thinking, like, if you were in the building next to that and you were you were built at around the same year with the same materials.
I'd be moving.
Would you be moving? I would be.
Moving.
I would be, because they're saying the structurally or something, it's starting to rust the steel inside, which expands it, and then over time it just weakens over time. Right? Again, there could be a nefarious thing going on, or it could just be like, all the stuff that was built this way. And they thought it would last 1,000 years, but they're realizing these buildings are probably going to only last around 100 years. So we'll see. We'll see if all of a sudden there's this huge thing where they're like, they got to spend billions of dollars like redoing all these buildings, then we'll know that it's not so nefarious. It was just the one building. But again, nothing surprises me. UFOs approaching and alien contact being announced tomorrow, nothing's going to surprise me anymore.
I'd yawn, roll over, and go back to sleep.
Probably I'd be like, oh, what?
Just
just another day in 2021, or it just seems like from 2020 to 2030, I think we're in for a hell of a ride. I really do. Like, I think this decade is just going to be wild, because everyone's like, oh, at least we're out of 2020. And I kept saying on my radio show, 2021 is going to be way crazier than 2020. So I might go so far as to say that
you live in interesting times.
Sure.
But you know what? Not this interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, they toned down the interesting, tone down that just a tad. Just give us a little breather here.
Anyway, we already said goodbye. I just wanted to let people know that's why we got off on the Florida tangent, because of the condo in Florida. So,
all right, well, we'll close up. Really appreciate everyone for tuning in to Celebrate Truth Radio. This is episode 112. It's July 3rd. Independence Day kicks off in America. And we'll see exactly what they're spinning around that and how crazy things are going to become just with every holiday. And it seems to me like as time goes on, it started off as Pride Week, then it went to Pride Month. Maybe it's going to be a Pride season and then Pride full year. I don't know at what point they're going to be satisfied, but I say this all the time. They're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing until that breaking point. Guys, when's the breaking point going to come? When are you going to speak out? Start talking to your friends, your family. Be compassionate. Be loving. Understand that it might not be sudden when they just wake up. It might take a few years. Plant those seeds. Honestly, don't give up. Go slow. Be constant, and do that always in love, because at the end of the day, people need to wake up to the truth. They need to be set free. In Jesus Christ, I say this all the time, John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. It's not about a religion, guys. It's about a relationship, and it all centers around him. And he is the only one that can make you truly free. So really appreciate your time. It was great having Patricia Steere on. We'll have her on real soon. So everyone, good night. God bless. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Take care, everyone.
That was cool. Thank you. Oh, we're still on.